Clerk, would you go ahead and take us out of closed meeting, please?
Where only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and identified in the closed meeting motion discussed in closed meeting. Councilors of Golis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore? Yes. Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
I would like to go ahead and reconvene the open meeting. Madam Clerk, would you read this certification?
You just did.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Way ahead of me. Okay. Do we have a motion to amend the order of the agenda to enable City Council to vote on appointees prior to the regular business, to move the HRHA work session to unfinished business and make an action item, and to adopt the agenda as so amended?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilors of Golis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
Okay. Also would like to go ahead and to appoint Daniel Jones to the Downtown Design Review Committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilors of Golis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
7-0.
Okay, we were going to move the work session to unfinished business, so we will go ahead right into our regular meeting, and I will call the regular meeting into order. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll, please?
Councilors of Golis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Here.
Councilor Denton?
Here.
Councilor Pelham?
Here.
Mayor Shornack?
Here.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Here.
Councilor Holloway?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. I would like to extend a welcome to all the people who have shown up to our council meeting tonight. We appreciate your concern for our community and hope that you will make it every second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. We would love to have you come back and express your opinion and give us your feedback. Before we have Reverend Judy Bailey come up, I just want to, for our prayer and also the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilor Zavgolis, I would like to extend a moment of silence to all our 9/11 victims that happened tragically years ago, that we still are remembering them to this day, what a tragedy it was. And let's just pray for the families also of the people during the last month that has lost their lives, and not only gunfire, but by a brutal situation to a child. And let's remember the families of all those that have been lost, and just remember and keep them in prayer. So if we have just stand and have about a 10 second, just a moment of silence for all these people, and then we're going to ask Reverend Judy Bailey to come up for prayer. Reverend Bailey.
Greetings to the mayor, the vice mayor, the city council members, and the officials of this city of Hopewell, Virginia. Let us bow our heads now for prayer. Almighty and loving Father, We just thank you for allowing us to assemble here once more in this chamber. Thank you, Father God, for every precious gift from above. We just thank you, Lord, for all that you do. And we thank you in a mighty, mighty way for these council members that you have chosen and given your confidence to make the best decisions that are in the interest of the people of this great city of Hopewell, Virginia. The council will make decisions that are in the best interest, and I pray that you grant the council to have a true sense of justice and to work together in harmonious atmosphere that will bring peace and comfort and joy for all. Thank you for the confidence that the people of the city have given you to be responsible for coming to a consensus that will be honorable and will be beneficial to the welfare and for the needs of the people of this great city. Thank you all for all that you do, and we know that you are in the hands of God, and God's presence is in this place. And we just ask you, Lord, that they do everything that is just and honest in your sight and for the people of this city. In Jesus' name, I do pray this prayer. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Bailey. Appreciate it. Okay, do we have a motion to approve or amend the consent agenda? Yes, Mr.
Madam Mayor, if it's okay with council, we'd like to add a presentation this evening. Mr. Ben Rupert is here from our emergency management.
sure.
We'd like to give you an update on
The emergency.
Hurricane Florence.
Okay, that's great. So do I have a motion to add on a hurricane update?
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. Roll call?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Mr. Kalos, the minutes,
Oh,
if council would give us the permission, we'd like to pull all the minutes for review, which we had already discussed. But I think since they're on the agenda, do we need to say that, Mr. Kalos?
I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, they were
Okay.
in the package, and
Yes, yes.
okay,
make
so
that?
do I need a amended
I think you need to
Motion.
amend the agenda to remove
exclude
item C1.
Oh,
C1?
okay.
And add the update.
Exclude E1 and,
C1.
I'm sorry, C1 and add the hurricane update.
Right.
Okay?
Agree.
Agree?
Thank you.
Okay.
Roll call.
Roll call?
Councilor Zepgolis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes?
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
7-0.
Okay, so the first presentation we have is Southeast.
No, it's Ben Rupert.
Mr.
Oh,
Rupert.
Ben. Okay. Come on up, Ben.
Madam Mayor, members of council, just a quick update on the hurricane itself. As of the Hurricane Center's 5 p.m. release, it is a Category 4 hurricane with 140 mile per hour winds. The track has jostled about quite a bit. It's still in that showing landfall in that southerly portion of North Carolina. However, the wind field for tropical storm force winds is out 175 miles from the eye. So this is a significant storm. Their expectation here in Central Virginia, I know there's a lot of news channels that have had a lot of different opinions. The National Weather Service still expects that we could receive up to that 15 inches of rain. We could also see tropical storm conditions here in Central Virginia, and we could see wind gusts up to 50 to 65 miles an hour. Again, that's hopefully the worst case scenario at this point. We have seen a good trend for us, not for others, as far as a more southerly route and track. The expectation for them of tropical storm force winds arriving here in Central Virginia could be somewhere in the vicinity of Friday at 8 a.m. Around that time frame. As far as the city's current actions, we've been having staff meeting with the city manager and all the department heads every morning this week, and we've begun all of our preparations. The EOC has been set up. It's prepared to be activated as soon as we need to use it. All the generators across the city have been tested and fueled. All the vehicles have been fueled, and we'll be receiving another fuel delivery on Thursday just prior to the storm's arrival. We also have staffing plans underway for our Emergency Operations Center, as well as sheltering, possible sheltering, and possible community distribution if we need that. We have moved all of our shelter supplies to the community center if we need to open that, and they will actually be setting that up tomorrow. Again, partly as an exercise. They had intended to do an exercise with sheltering this fall, and so they thought this was a perfect opportunity to go ahead and do that exercise and have it set up in the event that we would need it in the aftermath of the storm. All of the city departments have prepared their operational plans for their individual departments and the responsibilities that they currently have, including the fire department with our boats and our swiftwater rescue members. Outside of the city, the state EOC is at partial activation. They'll be moving to full activation very soon. The National Guard has 1,500 troops that have been activated, and there's a possibility of another 4,500 if needed. Dominion Power has also begun their preparations. We'll be having a conference call with them tomorrow as far as what their plan is for restoration, as well as the Virginia American Water Company. They have also done a lot of preparations as well. They've tested all their generators. They fueled all their generators. They also have diesel pumps at the low pumping station that they've also tested. So they feel that they are in a good position as well for the storm. And that would be the end of my briefing, and I would open it up for questions if anyone has any.
Ben, where's the EOC going to be?
In the basement of Fire Station 1.
The basement of Fire Station 1?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you give the number to the public for that EOC?
Yes, ma'am.
So they can know who to call for questions.
And this number would only be activated should we activate the EOC.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But yes,
So it'd
ma'am.
be-
That number is 804-415-8802.
Thank you.
Ben, would you also put on, and it might be on the website, maybe like the Dominion Power number that you call on the Hopewell website, and maybe this number as well for citizens that can go on there and look, just prepare themselves. But
Yes,
also, just to make sure that, they know where to call when a tree landed on their roof or something, like that. Would appreciate that. And thank you, Ben, you and your team. I know y'all have really been working hard this week, and there's a lot of things to cover. It's not just, it's all of these entities together, and we thank you for working hard to make sure that we and our citizens of Hopewell are safe. So, anyone else? Vice Mayor Gore?
I was just gonna say also thank you, but also to tell residents to make sure they check the city's website for updates. They're posting right now. The other thing is I just got a message from Comcast. They're setting up Wi-Fi hotspots around the regional area. They'll be available until noon on the 17th. So whenever I can get that list, I'll give it to you guys to share as well, just in case people might need to have access to get news or other things like that. And to make sure everyone's registered for Nixle and the other emergency
very
systems that we have. You get messages on your phone when there's updates and email. So check our website. We do have that on there, so you can sign into Code Red and Nixle and get your account set up if you have not already.
And we just pray that everybody stay home and off the streets while everybody stays safe. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Okay, the presentation of the Southeast Diabetes Faith Initiative. Good evening.
My name is Dr. Tanya Bender Henderson, and I am the Virginia State Manager for the Southeast Diabetes Faith Initiative. The Southeast Diabetes Faith Initiative is a national program of the Balm in Gilead. And it is a 5-state faith-based project designed to expand access and utilization to the Center for Disease Control, the CDC's, Prevent T2 program. In partnership with local faith partners, SDFI supports and encourages communities and individuals to live healthier in mind, body, and spirit. Next slide. In the state of Virginia, we were charged by the CDC to reach 5 different areas within the state of Virginia. And those are the city of Colonial Heights, Fairfax County, city of Hampton, the city of Hopewell, and Sussex County. And like I said, the 5 states that the Balm in Gilead is working in are Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. And as I said, I'm the manager for the Virginia effort. Across the country, 84 million American adults have prediabetes, meaning they have not been diagnosed with diabetes, but they have risk factors that would indicate that if they don't do something now, they will. And in Virginia in particular, 1 million Virginians have prediabetes, and that's 1/3 of the state's population. 9 of 10 Virginians don't know they have prediabetes. And so that's why we're trying to reach the people of Hopewell. Prediabetes can lead to serious health problems. Having prediabetes means your blood glucose sugar level is higher than normal, but not high enough to be diagnosed as diabetic. 1 in 10 adults who have, as I just mentioned, 9 of 10 don't know they're pre-diabetic. 1 of 10 adults who have prediabetes don't know it. If you have prediabetes and don't lose weight or increase your physical activity, you could develop diabetes within 5 years. Diabetes can lead to heart attack, stroke, blindness, kidney failure, loss of toes, feet, or legs. And I would venture to guess everybody in this room knows someone or has a family member that has diabetes. And the risk factors for prediabetes are being 45 years or older, being overweight, have a family history of type 2 diabetes, having high blood pressure, are physically active fewer than 3 times a week, and ever had diabetes while pregnant or gestational diabetes. So the people who are eligible for our program are people who are 18 years and older, have a BMI of 25 or higher, and must not have previously had a diagnosis of type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And they also have to meet the following criteria: a positive test result for prediabetes within the preceding 12 months, clinically diagnosed gestational diabetes during a previous pregnancy, or a score of 5 or higher on a prediabetes risk test. The next slide is the risk test. And some of the things on the risk test are, as I already mentioned, what your age is, whether or not, for women, whether they've had gestational diabetes, family history, physical activity and weight, of course, are risk factors, and they're indicators that you could become diabetic. So, getting started with our program, here in Hopewell, the church that we're working with is Friendship Baptist Church, where the pastor is Reverend Dr. Norwood Carson, and the young lady who's helping me who just passed out the information is Sharon Napper, and she is the lifestyle coach who was trained by the CDC to deliver this intervention. Excuse me. As well as we have a second lifestyle coach whose name is Lawana Simpson. Right now we have a class going on at Friendship Baptist Church, but what we're here for today is we're trying to get the word out to the entire city, and anybody who will listen, and let them know that we're willing to come to you to offer classes. We just need to have a number of people who are interested in the class, and we can bring the class to you. And I appreciate Councilor Pelham for inviting me as part of the OC3 here in, which is a group of churches, of course, here in Hopewell. And I'm also working with Reverend Jeff Butler at the Presbyterian Church about the possibility of doing it at that church as well. So the choice, of course, is up to people. We can't drag people in and make them come do the class, but we're trying to do enough awareness effort to let people know that you can avoid diabetes. I'm diabetic myself. I wish I'd known about this program several years ago. The benchmarks of the program are that a person lose 5 to 7% of their body weight, as well as increase their physical activity to 150 minutes a week, which can be broken up in any combination, but basically what that is 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And we just ask people, it's a year-long program, whereas for the first 6 months, generally we meet once a week. For the second 6 months, we meet every other week. And Sharon can attest to the fact that people are losing weight and people are increasing their physical activity. The people in her class meet at various places around the city.
We're using also in conjunction at our church and our program with a fitness instructor that we partner up with to provide exercise and free personal training. And as long as you're a member of the class here, that is actually free. We do work out at the Hopewell High School. We also plan to incorporate some exercise programs at the new redesigned Arlington Park with the track and the resistance equipment there. And we have also started a class starting tomorrow at KIPAX. And as she said, we do go 2 places and not just there in the church. It could be other churches, other community centers and things like that, to bring the program to the people and also tie in with the healthy lifestyle that y'all have that's starting with the National League of Cities to bring healthy options and equity to the to the cities as far as being healthy and making sure that those disparities not based on where you're living in your zip code, that you still have the same amount of availability and options to healthcare and exercise. And we also have partnered with several other doctors in the area, Dr. Morris and Dr. Duncan, and with their programs also to tie in with their patients to cut down on the readmissions and things that go on at John Randolph and the other hospitals. So those are the things that we're trying to work together within the city to bring a healthy and fit Hopewell.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a great presentation. We all need to heed to these wise words. Well, thank you so much. Vice Mayor Gore?
Before you go,
Arrington for being patient with me to try to get here. Yes.
I was just going to say, can we step a meeting later on and talk about what you mentioned with National League of Cities? And this is, Councilor Palm, thank you for making sure they presented, because I just left 9 to 5 was our meeting with the Hopewell Downtown Partnership. We were fortunate enough to get a grant through the EPA, HUD, and a whole bunch of other agencies to work on local food, local places. And one aspect of that is creating fresh foods and local food, entrepreneurship. We're trying to do a kitchen incubator, a whole bunch of other things. But an element of that we talked about was partnering with health organizations to be able to do workshops or cooking classes or different things. So, and the other part is with NLC, so I'm like, yay, is because the city manager Ms. Griffin, city manager, we're going to be going to, NLC is paying for us to go to Atlanta because of a grant that they just gave us, and the element of that grant project is health as well.
Yeah,
So
I read
there's
that
like
article, so that's what
2 or
I'm
3
saying.
partnerships that kind of aligned. I would like to definitely talk with you to see if we can figure out how to build
Okay,
those.
definitely.
Thank you
very
again
much.
for
Thank
coming.
you.
Appreciate it.
And we shared some information with everybody here as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, District 19, Community Services Board. Hi.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Tunstall, and I'm the Executive Director at District 19 Community Services Board. I was appointed into that position in April of this year. The previous Executive Director, Joseph Hubbard, was the Executive Director for 24 years. So
Yes.
I'm taking on this role. I'm new in this role. I have been at District 19 for 15 years, though, so I'm very familiar with the system, but I wanted to come out and just give an overview of our services and what we offer in the community. So District 19 is a multi-jurisdictional, community-based behavioral health organization. Our mission is to improve the quality and productivity of lives of individuals who experience or who are at risk of experiencing mental disabilities or substance abuse. We are licensed by the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services to provide mental health, intellectual and developmental disabilities, substance abuse and prevention services to the citizens of Colonial Heights, Emporia, Hopewell, Petersburg, and the counties of Dinwiddie, Greensville, Prince George, Surrey, and Sussex. We do have a volunteer board of directors that provides oversight to District 19, and we have a list of our board members currently. We do have a vacancy for the city of Hopewell to be represented on our board of directors, so anyone who is interested, they would be appointed by their locality. It is a volunteer board that serves 3-year terms. I also just put the Code of Virginia section that talks about the Community Services Board appointments, and that it's the responsibility of the localities to ensure that their localities are represented on our board. District 19 finances its work through a combination of public and private sector funding. We're still getting all of our 2018 figures together, so in 2017 we generated revenues of $15.5 million from multiple sources, which I just wanted to note that for every $1 of local funding provided by the localities we serve, $19 was generated from other services. And our service revenue comes primarily from Medicaid. So you can see on the next slide, there's a chart with the breakdown of our funding resources. So the services that District 19 provides are mental health, intellectual disability, developmental disability, and substance use disorder services. We offer emergency services for people in crisis. We offer early intervention services for young children and prevention services to reduce risk and to promote wellness. In 2017, we provided direct services to 5,517 individuals within our catchment area for substance use, mental health, and developmental disabilities. And the next slide will show the breakdown of the individuals we serve. The majority is for mental health, but I think we will definitely find for 2018 that substance use has greatly increased. The services that we provide in our adult services unit includes mental health case management, psychosocial rehabilitation, substance use services, iWork program, psychiatric and nursing services, transitional living and supportive housing, intellectual and developmental disability services, and our PACT program, which is a program for assertive community treatment. Our children and adolescent services includes school-based therapy, juvenile corrections, prevention, mental health case management, intellectual and developmental disabilities case management, court services, and early intervention. We have a division that's called Community Integration and Crisis Services, and that includes our emergency services, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have community-based crisis stabilization. We have crisis intervention teams and crisis assessment centers, the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Project, and same-day access. And the next slide has just a highlight of our same-day access. Sept, Virginia is an initiative that mandates us to start providing same-day access as for all community services boards. So we do have the pilot for same-day access in our Petersburg clinic. That's where our main office is in Petersburg. So we offer same-day access for those individuals who need to be seen the same day for an assessment for behavioral health services. We do plan to expand the same-day access to all of our clinics in the future as soon as we get all of those positions staffed and funded. So for more information, we do have a website that's d19csb.com. We do have a Facebook page. You can like us on Facebook or you can follow us on Twitter.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Really appreciate you coming out tonight, giving us an overview exactly what your organization does for all the different localities around. Mrs. Pelham?
Do you have any statistics on how many citizens in Hopewell use your service? Did you bring that by chance?
I do not have those with me, but we do definitely have it divided up by locality, so I can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Would you send that information to the clerk and then she can share it with all of council?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on with our public hearings. Public hearing number 1.
Public hearing number 1, the item on your agenda is a vacation request for Western Street. We've removed that item from the agenda while we had it on the, we're not removing it from the agenda. We're going to open the public hearing. It was on, we advertised it. We feel like we should open the public hearing. However, at this point in time, we would ask that any action be postponed pending the ability of the individuals requesting the vacation and the property owner to make an arrangement on the purchase of the property. Once that's finalized, we'll bring it back to council for action.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the rezoning request for Western Street? There is no one signed up, but however, if there is anyone that would like to speak, you may come up. If not, go
It's
ahead.
a vacation request, yeah.
Close the public hearing.
Well, just to
But-
be clear,
Yeah,
We need to,
there was
I said it was
something we didn't get, you said that.
I said it was a vacation request.
Yeah, it's, the
Oh.
heading says rezoning, it's a vacation.
okay,
request.
vacation. Okay.
Sorry.
Do we have to have a motion to go ahead and postpone it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to postpone this request pending an agreement between the property owners?
So moved. Second.
And will y'all bring this back to us when it is ready?
Soon as we
Okay.
have confirmation that there's an agreement, we have a copy of that, we will bring it back to council
Okay.
for action.
We have a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Councilors of Golis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, public hearing number 2.
The second item on our agenda this evening is public hearing number 2, conditional use permit request on City Point Road. There's been a request made to build a duplex on Lot 1R at the corner of Wagner and City Point Road, Block 5 of the Battle Ground Annex. The property is located in the R2 Medium Residential Zoning District. Ms. Griffin is here to present a staff report.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Vice Mayor Gore. I will say I forgot my glasses, so I cannot see that screen, but that's okay. Hopefully, I can still get through this.
You want mine?
No, I don't think they're going to work. But we did receive an application from CDR Rentals LLC to place a duplex at Lot 1R. The lot is further identified as 0140056. It is located at the corner of Wagner Avenue and City Point Road. The R2 district requires a conditional use permit if someone wants to build a duplex. At their meeting, the Planning Commission did recommend denial of this request. The recommendation was made because it does not meet, it is not compatible with the architectural style of the homes that are in the area. In your packet, you will also find on page 5, staff did an inventory of properties in the immediate area, and we came up with a table. This is something that council has asked us to do consistently when dealing with conditional use permits, and you will see that most of the homes there are single-family detached homes. The square footage averages about 1,731 square feet, and the number of bedrooms is an average of 3, and the number of bathrooms is an average of 2. The duplexes that are proposed will be 1,200 square feet each. There are going to be 2 duplexes on both properties. You have 2 different public hearings tonight, but when I talk about them, I'm talking about them all the same. We do have the property owner here tonight, and he is here to answer any questions you have. And you also have Mr. Elides, who's the chairman of the Planning Commission, who can answer questions regarding the Planning Commission's decision.
Thank you, Tavia. I'm going to go ahead and open up the,
Let the applicant.
I'm sorry?
Can we let the applicant speak?
Oh,
before?
sure. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
You want to come up?
My name is Andy Rogers, and I'm the owner of CDR Rentals here in Hopewell, well, Petersburg, formerly Hopewell, now Petersburg. And trying to get a conditional use permit to develop a piece of property that we own.
Can't hear you. Can you speak a little louder or put the mic to you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you. Do you have a question?
Yes, I guess so. With the Planning Commission, I guess you obviously know their recommendation. Were you guys not able to come to any agreement in terms of how to work with the agricultural concerns? The architecture concerns? Did you guys talk about any resolutions or ideas to be able to remedy why they denied the request?
No. Economically, for developing that property for me, because I own numerous places in Hopewell, because I had to tear down a house and try to rebuild it, rebuild property to get the property value back out of it. I was trying to, subdivide it and build 2 duplexes. I mean, I'm open to the fact of building, if I could get 3 houses out of it, but I know I don't have the required amount of, square footage, because I think it's 7,500 square feet per lot. But I don't have that. I have a little bit over 21,000 square feet. If I could have 2 lots of 7,500 square feet and then have 1 smaller lot, I mean, I would be open for that as well. Because, it's my, I own a lot of property here too, so I'm not trying to disrupt anything because it's, it is my concern here too as well, because I own a lot of property and I pay a lot of taxes. So I'm just trying to look at the best way I can develop this property.
Councilor Lumen Bailey.
Thank you. Is Mr. I didn't hear your name. I'm sorry. Mr.
Rogers.
Rogers. So, yeah, I was going to ask you. So this is formerly there was a single-family home.
Yes, ma'am.
On this lot, and it was torn down.
Yes, ma'am.
In the past 3 months, something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
That's okay.
It had foundation issues, and the lowest repair cost we got was $60,000. that was the lowest.
So, you feel that in order to, I mean, have you considered just building a single-family home and selling that as opposed to trying to,
I
you said
would
3
never-
houses would be, you wouldn't recuperate
I
your...
would never recoup what I've already lost and put into the development and surveying and tearing down the house.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Gore, I'll get to you. You've already spoke one time.
Actually, I did.
I would just like to ask the Planning Commission if you could come up and just give us the reason why you denied it.
Yeah, we had a couple of citizens come and also looking at the long-range plan, the comp plan that we have put forward. This is a residential area with single-family homes. Mr. Rogers wanted to build a duplex. It was kind of simple, and we like Mr. Rogers. There's no need to think that we don't. We know he's a businessman in Hopewell and has properties here, and we value that. But for this neighborhood, it wasn't the right spot. I can find you a whole lot of spots that we'd love to have duplexes in, but it just didn't look right in this neighborhood. We had a neighbor come that's across the street, might even be here tonight, I'm not sure, and he has a house right across the street. And he asked the same question. I just have this house, just built this house, and now you're going to build a duplex. And that's not why he moved in. So in other words, we sent the message, it's a neighborhood of single-family houses. So do we change that? And I feel bad for Mr. Rogers. I mean, but what can I do? He's got to figure out how he makes money. But at the same time, we have to do what's right for the neighbors in the city. And to us, it seemed like single-family residence.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Laddies. Vice Mayor, or Councilor Pelham.
Excuse me, is the apartments a part of this neighborhood too? What's the name of the? Are the apartments on Broadway a part of this community, considered a part of the same?
We did not consider
Consider
that.
that.
It's a little ways down the road. And across the street, there are actually duplexes, but there's
Oh,
a
that's
neighborhood
right.
of duplexes.
Yeah.
I mean, but the
That's what I
whole
thought.
area, Westmoreland?
Yeah, Westmoreland, yeah.
I mean, it's a PUD, so you know, it went through the process, it was approved, and all the people there can build duplexes. That's why we said we'd love to have him build duplexes, just not right
It's
here.
not on that spot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laddies. Vice Mayor Gore?
I was just gonna ask, because when I had the floor, you was making, I saw facial expressions when he was talking about the possibility of splitting the line. So, planning department, did you guys knew that that was something he was going to think about, or?
We talked about it tonight. He mentioned it to me tonight, and I informed him that that's not possible through the subdivision ordinance. He does not have enough square footage in order to subdivide the property into 3 separate properties for single-family detached home.
Okay, and then my question would be to the applicant, this is the last question I have, is, were you under the impression when so you purchased this property and tore down a house, correct?
Excuse me?
I'm just trying to catch up on the background. You purchased the property and tore down a house?
I've had the property probably 8 years, I believe. I purchased under a foreclosure.
Okay, so,
So when I went through the process, and because I've never done this before, I was told that I had to, get the lot survey. So that's what I did. Paid somebody to come and survey it, split it in 2, because they said the requirement for a duplex was 10,000 square feet. So the lot was big enough to do that. So that's what we did.
So I guess my question is, so you were under the impression that you would be able to get a duplex there, or when you said?
Well, especially when there's a whole neighborhood right across the street.
No, I mean, like, did you infer that, or did someone here say that that would be able to be possible on that land prior to you going through this whole process?
Yes, they told it was possible. That's why I did that. That's why I surveyed it. And that's why I had plans drawn. And plus, I'd like to add to the fact that it's not just a duplex. It's, there's houses beside it that have vinyl. The house that was just built, that was vinyl. These duplexes had brick veneer on the whole front of it. I'm sure you have a copy of the plans, and it had hardy board, hardy plank, So it was nothing like, it's just aesthetically cosmetic. It's better than anything around it. So aesthetically, the aesthetic look of it, it's going to look like a family house because it's going to have brick veneer on the front. It's going to have 2 porches, you know, front, well, not really porches, well, 1 porch in the front and then an entrance in the back. So it looks just like a family house. Of course, it's bigger, you know, because it's 2,400 square feet.
Okay, Counselor Pelham?
Ms. Griffin, didn't we do, how did we approve the houses in Ward, can't remember what ward it was, but it seemed like we've done that before where you reduce, I know where it was, Mesa Drive. When around that curbing one year, the 7,500 square footage was not, somehow we reduced it so that they could build a smaller house there several times. Do you know?
I don't recall
Okay,
the case that
can't
you're
either.
referring
Okay.
to.
But-
He had this property and it had 8 separate lots, and he wanted to build 2 single-family detached homes when he came into the office, and that requires a reduction in the lots. And so he reduced it from 8 to 2 lots. That's an administrative resub process that goes through the departments. And both of those lots are approximately 10,000 square feet. And he can build a single-family home on either of those lots. And he, if conditional use permit, he can then come before this body and request a duplex.
Okay, so he has room to build 2 homes, 2 individual single dwellings.
By right,
Yeah, with no intervention from anyone.
yes.
But he can't build, can he get a conditional use permit to reduce the number of square footage of 3,500?
No,
Cannot.
no, not in the R2 district. That's the minimum for a single-family detached. The minimum for a duplex is 10,000 square feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you. I was going to ask something similar as far as, so you discussed earlier this evening the possibility of 3 homes, and that won't work because there's not enough room.
That's correct.
And I'm just, so, well, but 2 homes, I mean, the applicant has already said that he wouldn't recoup his cost just building 1 home, but he could build 2 homes
No,
without.
I think he's also said he could not recoup his costs building 2 homes, correct? Correct.
So how was he led by you to believe that he could build 3?
No, he's never,
Who was they?
Yeah.
You said you talked to they. I don't know anyone that by
First of
that
all,
name.
I mean, I would dispute that, because first of all, we even have emails where the survey company and Tavia, it shows in the emails that we were trying to build duplexes. It was never going to be 2 single homes. So that's not correct, because even, I mean, the survey and they even lost the application for 2 months, basically. The whole thing was set aside for 2 months. Could never get an answer, couldn't do anything. So, and I kept calling. And surveyors were going back and forth. And I do have those emails, not with me tonight, but I do have those emails that he sent me to where we had never discussed 2 single-family houses. Because I wouldn't have done it to begin with. I wouldn't have did the lots in 2 because I had no intentions of building 2 single-family homes, because I would have never gotten the money back to begin with.
Okay, Councilor Lemon Bailey, Councilor Denton, and then Councilor Zepgolis.
Okay, I just, so again, the 2, that, actually, I think maybe the city manager, were you trying to get the
I had
attention?
to push, but go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that the 2, yeah, I'm concerned about the neighbors. And yes, I understand that across the street there is Westmoreland, but that's a fairly large road. And I remember from when I spoke with some of the people in that neighborhood, long ago, they weren't so happy about that happening, and that was, a good distance away. So I'm concerned about the neighbors and the neighborhood, and I mean, I'm not trying to, I don't want to get into a he said, she said type thing, but it just seems, and I'll let the city manager take over, because I'm not sure where we're going with
Well,
the.
it's like I said,
what.
I'm not opposed, and it's like I told you before, I'm not opposed to doing away with the duplexes. I'm not opposed to that, because the house right next to, my whole big parcel, I mean, the house don't even face the street. It's turned sideways. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to having two houses face the street and one turned sideways, just like my neighboring lot. I mean, I'm not opposed to that as well. If I could get 3 single-family homes, I mean, I think everybody would be fine with that.
So,
Wait a minute.
if I may, so the reality here is that the applicant does not have enough land to create 3 lots. So he can request a conditional use permit, and we can't deny anyone the ability to go through the process to request a conditional use permit to build the duplexes. That's why we're here tonight. If we uphold, or council upholds, the planning commission's decision to deny, he then has the ability to build 2 single-family homes. Whether he chooses to do that or likes to do that isn't material. He has that ability, and he can re-subdivide those lots as long as it meets the minimum requirement for the lot size. So you could have one 7,500 square foot lot, which meets the minimum, and the other could be the remainder of that lot. But he does not have enough land, absent an attempt to rezone the property, to build 3 single-family homes. So tonight, we can't entertain creating 3 lots.
Right.
That would be a separate process that he would need to go through to try to rezone it to a designation to get a smaller lot size requirement. So tonight, you've got the CUP request for the duplexes. If that doesn't pass, he still has the ability to build 2 single-family homes. Whether he chooses to do that or not would be up to him.
But why would you do that?
Excuse me, I think it's Counselor Denton's.
I mean, I wouldn't have invested over $30,000 to build 2 houses when it was understood, because I had the emails that duplexes were not, it was brought up that my intention was to build 2 single-family homes. That was not the intentions at all.
Regardless of whether your intention was to build duplexes or single-family homes, you still
But
need
why
to,
was I
you
led
still
to
need to
spend
get.
all of this money for?
No. So you can request all day long, and anybody in this room can request a conditional use permit to build duplexes. That does not guarantee that this council will approve the request to build duplexes. It's why it's called a conditional use permit. It is granted at their pleasure. So you can go through the process, but they don't have to grant. So that's your risk that you take during that process.
Okay, Counselor
Well, you shouldn't be
Denton.
misled either.
Excuse me, please. Counselor Denton.
I guess I'm a little confused because this is the public hearing.
Not yet.
It's still not a
We haven't
public.
opened it
We
yet.
haven't opened it
Just
yet.
because I know, because I would like to know, and know we have asked this question, Ms. Griffin, have the people around this property been notified of building the 2 duplexes? And if so, what kind of response are you getting from them?
Yes, we're required by law to provide all the adjacent property owners with notification. They were notified for the Planning Commission meeting, and as Mr. Eliades alluded to, they did come to that meeting, and they were also notified of the City Council meeting, and I do recognize some of them in the audience here
Yes, we
tonight.
have quite a few people
Yeah,
here.
so-
And everyone that has called, someone also sent us an email for the Planning Commission meeting, and everyone has been in opposition of the conditional use permits.
Been in opposition of?
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Zepgolis, and then we must go
Yes,
ahead with the.
thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a little concern, sir, with you saying that you bought the house or bought the property with the express purpose building 2 duplexes. Before I would have bought any piece of property, I would have went ahead. No, I'm not asking you to come up to ask the question. I would have personally went ahead and found out what I could build there to begin with. And I find it a little bit hard to believe or to be convinced that someone could buy a home at a foreclosure. And I don't know what you paid for it, but when you say foreclosure and it had some problems, I don't know how much it cost you financially. But to tear down a home after you've purchased the lot, obviously the lot was more valuable than the home was. But I can't imagine not being able to build 2 separate homes there and recovering your money. I think you really made a mistake when you didn't check that out before because you were emphatic about that I knew all along I was going to put duplexes there, and you said that to them. There's another thing that council has to be very aware of or cautious of, is what the state calls spot zoning. And when we do these conditional use permits, well, we're incumbent to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed when you do this, because spot zoning is just another way of putting a home or something in a area that's zoned from something else, and this just by letter and consent of council and by vote of council actually allows the conditional use permit to go into place. So you got to be very careful anytime that you issue a conditional use permit. And when you say duplexes, the first thing I think of is 4 rentals. And Hopewell has an abundance of rentals. And I'm sure that what you're going to build is going to be better than what a lot of other rentals are, that we currently have. Maybe we need to tear down a lot more of those and replace them with higher quality rentals. But I do have a concern, and and I've heard from a lot of the neighborhoods and people on the street. In fact, I hadn't had one positive call that was in favor. Every call that I received was agreed with the Planning Commission to deny it. And I did see where the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on the matter back on August the 16th, and I heard the director, Ms. Griffin, talked about it was overwhelmingly the people that did speak there were opposed to this. I think I, for one, will vote to deny the permit. I will not. So if the motion is to issue a permit, I'm going to vote against it. And if the motion is to allot, I heard somebody say, "Excuse me." Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So if there's something that that was already mentioned that can be worked out, then I would suggest that it goes back to the Planning Commission. It seems like there are some things they will agree to, and I certainly, and maybe the neighbors will too. I would maybe pursue that course of action, because I, for one, will support a motion to deny the request.
Councilor Pelham.
Yes, with the information you gave us about the emails, were you abreast of that, or is there any potential litigation for the council or the Planning Commission?
Well, let me suggest, I have not been party to the emails, and what I heard initially isn't what I ended up hearing. I think we need to be careful here about, I'm looking at the rules as we speak, about making personal and slanderous statements, for one thing.
Right.
Secondly, you haven't opened your public hearing yet, so we might want to go there, but I'm not a party to that. And even if, I don't know how a reasonable person, not implying anyone's not a reasonable person, but that's the legal standard, how a reasonable person could ignore the law on what, as Councilor Segolis said, what the permissive uses are. It really doesn't matter what might have been said. That doesn't change what the actual law is and what the zoning is. And when you do buy a property, whether it's foreclosure for $2 or fair market value, you are charged by law with the status of the property when you buy it. And it doesn't matter what someone says or doesn't say. Now, I know the person who allegedly said something different, and I don't believe that, but that's not the issue here. And it's not a court of law. And if it got to a court of law, nothing's going to change that a property owner or prospective owner is bound by the current zoning and has a process to go through. And he's been through this process, and he's in this process right now. And as Mr. Altman said, that's really the only issue tonight. But yeah, I think you do want to get to the point where we actually open the public hearing.
Yeah.
But good
yes.
question.
Thank you. I would like to go ahead now and open up the public hearing. On the list, first I have Johnny Parton.
Good evening, Mayor Shornack, members of City Council. I am Johnny Parton. I live at 207 Fairview Avenue, Ward 3. I'm here tonight to speak against the 2 duplexes that are being proposed on Wagner Street, South Mesa Drive, and also City Point Road. I know it's 2 public hearings, but I would like just my comments to be for the record for both public hearings. I believe that both of these duplexes are a bad idea and will end up hurting the surrounding neighborhoods in the long run. Crescent Hills and Battleground Annex deserve a lot better, especially the homeowners. Personally, as a homeowner, and especially one that lives less than 4 blocks away from this site, I personally don't want this. I do not want to see a project that is, quote, not adding value to the neighborhood. I want something that's going to add substance to the neighborhood, add substance to the housing stock in Hopewell. The house prior to there that was demolished was a single family dwelling, and I believe it should remain the same. I see this project as an out-of-town developer looking only to increase profits at the expense of the surrounding neighborhoods. We just had somebody build a brand new home across the street from the proposed lot. We just had somebody across another street renovate their house. We have a retired Air Force colonel with over 28 years of service who is currently renovating and building massive additions onto the house at the intersection of Day Street and Oakwood Avenue, also less than 4 blocks away from this proposal. These individuals are investing in this community. They are investing in the neighborhoods. Don't let all their work and their investment go in vain for nothing. I drove around Hopewell this past weekend, and I saw that the majority of the duplexes were not kept up. They resulted in a lower quality of life for the surrounding neighborhood. And I'm asking you to please send a message that this is your opportunity to put your vote where your mouth is. You all talk about too much rental property, too many landlords not taking care of their property, and this is your opportunity right here to say we want homeowners, single-family dwelling units, and I believe that this will overall improve the housing stock if you deny this, and I think the neighborhood would be much better served with a homeowner there as opposed to rental units. Thank you.
Okay. Brandon Butterworth.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Brandon Butterworth. I reside at 617 Mansion Drive. I don't want to beat a dead horse tonight, but I'd like to go on the record as opposing the conditional use permit as presented. As a homeowner here in town, as many of you are, I open my tax reassessment every 2 years, and I kind of cringe as I do it because the last few years, reassessments have been dropping and dropping. And while I don't doubt the quality of the project, I do fear what might happen over time. And I think that over time, it's going to hurt the assessments, the values of the neighboring homes. And as Mr. Parton pointed out, there is a new home across the street. There is someone who just significantly remodeled their home, and I think to do this would be a bait and switch a little bit deceiving and disingenuous. So I'd like to go on the record as opposing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra, I'm not sure of the last name, Sandra Tabhart? Sandra? Okay. Kim Sharon?
Good evening, Mayor Shornack and Council. My name is Kim Sharon, and I live at 2803 West City Point Road, and I've been a resident there for 19 years. And I was one that did not get a notification about, the property and what was going on. As a matter of fact, from my home, I can see the property, like angled at Mr. Kalo's there. I can see this property pretty good. And I have lived there 19 years and raised my daughter in this home, and I've loved the neighborhood. And what I loved about the neighborhood, it's an older, quaint style. The homes there are Sears homes mostly in this neighborhood, and to me, that's one of the reasons that I guess I love it so much. And as a matter of fact, you could go to the tourist center and get a pamphlet on touring these homes in our neighborhood, and it's nothing to look outside your window and see people standing out there with cameras taking pictures. And I just feel like, especially the duplex thing, would not be fitting in this quaint little neighborhood that we have that I love so much. And it's, for me, I just was disappointed when I heard, and I'm sorry about, his loss on money. But as a business person, I have to agree with you, Mr. Zavgolis. I think before I would have purchased this property, I would have found out, what I could have done with it before, investing so much money. And that's just the name of the game. Sometimes you lose. But I think for our neighbors in the neighborhood, most of everyone that I've talked to, I haven't heard anyone that has been excited about, we want to, make our neighborhood look good. But I just do not think that the duplexes would be fitting, and I'm opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie Dodson.
I'm Maggie Dodson, and we live at 201 Prince George Avenue, and we have lived in our home for 47 years. We love our home, we love our neighborhood, and we love our neighbors. And we are very distressed about this duplex idea coming into our neighborhood. It is not a neighborhood for duplexes. We have a lot of people that come into our neighborhood that are viewing the Sears homes, that are looking at the catalog homes, that are touring. And I'm sure that a lot of our neighbors have noticed the out-of-state people that are coming into the neighborhood and viewing these homes. And we are not excited at all to think they're going to come in and look at duplexes. We just don't feel very comfortable with this, and we would ask for consideration for the people that have lived there all these years, to give us some consolence that this is not going to happen in this neighborhood of Crossing Hills. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarence Dodson.
As my wife said, we've lived in this area for 47 years in our home, and most of the people around has kept their homes up really nice. And the neighborhood itself, where these duplexes, this fellow wants to put these duplexes, is a heavy travel area. And you would come down and see these homes, and then you would look and see the duplex. Now, what would you think? And eventually, like Segola said, over the years, rental property seemed to deteriorate. People don't want to keep them up. They want the money, but they don't want to keep the houses up. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson. Virginia Diodore. That's all right. You signed up. You're welcome to talk, Ms. Diodora, if you want. Doris Wilsley? Or,
We thought we had to sign in just because.
oh, okay, you did not want to talk. Okay, well, thank you. If there's anybody else, that's it on the list. If there's anybody else that would like to talk. Well, I think we have to wait until the second public hearing, okay?
How y'all doing?
Good evening.
My name is Tanai Jarrett Jr. I live at 101 Crescent Avenue. We just purchased a home, been here 4 months, and I'll post it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome home.
If you're on the public hearing 3, we have to wait until that at that time. This is just for public hearing number 2, even though they're interconnected, okay? If there's no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And do we have a motion? Vice Mayor Gore?
Make a motion to deny the conditional use permit for subparcel 014-0056.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Denton. Any further discussion?
I just
Roll.
Just want to make a point of clarity first, for the sake of the planning department and director. During this stuff, I did message her to get clarity, and she's saying she did not suggest that building the duplex is possible on this property, just for staff to be able to clear the record.
Councilwoman Bailey?
I did want to say that part of approving a conditional use permit is whatever is being proposed, that it fit in the character of the neighborhood. And I think from the comments we've heard tonight, it's pretty clear that the neighborhood doesn't feel like this is going to fit in the character of their neighborhood. So,
okay, roll call, please.
Councilor Zepgolis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, moving on to public hearing 3.
Public hearing number 3 is a conditional use permit to build a duplex on Lot 2R, which is on Mesa Drive, identified as subparcel number 014-0057, Battleground Annex. The property's on the corner of Mason City Point. Ms. Griffin had indicated previously that the staff report was essentially for both requests. So if you'd like to open your public hearing.
Okay. Would like to go ahead and open the public hearing. First person I have on the list is Brandon Butterworth. I'm sorry?
You might want to, we could possibly streamline it and just ask if anyone who's signed up and said the first thing is adopting their comments from
Okay.
earlier, or if there's anything to
I think
add.
there's some new people on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if there are
Okay.
any repeats.
Okay.
I'll reaffirm my previous comment.
Okay, thank you. Anthony Sylvester.
I'll be quick. I certainly adopt everything. First of all, I live at 109 Crescent Avenue, which is, if you're coming down City Point's the first left, and I live at the end of that first block. I've lived there for about 16 years. I've lived in Hopewell for about 42 years. Now you know why. When people say, well, why did you stick around Hopewell when you lost the election? Well, you know why, because these are the kind of neighbors that I live around, as well as a lot of other fine people in Hopewell. But you know what, I'm going to cut straight to the chase. The only reason you've heard about this proposal is because of profit. And you've been thrown some numbers about he's not going to make any money. I'm a little dubious about that. I'll be blunt about it. We don't know what he paid for it. But it certainly intends, and that's all you've heard, is in terms of why he wants to do what he does. He doesn't live in this neighborhood. He didn't consult any of the neighbors. It's a profit motive. He made a bad decision, like Mr. Zevgolis said, but we don't even know that that's the case. But what he's asking you to do is to disturb the integrity of this community, which is single-family dwellings He's asking you to ignore the fact that in his corporate name, he's rental. It's right there looking at you. So we're going to invite 3 more rental units or 6 more, even 3 single-family dwellings would destroy the integrity of this neighborhood. We talk about notice, we talk about fairness, like Mr. Zevgola said, he was on notice about what the zoning was when he moved in there. But what about the neighbor across the street? He was on notice too, right? I mean, he was on notice that when he made his investment, that the property across the street wasn't going to be dramatically changed. So he relied on that. The same way the lady that lives next to him on Mesa Drive has invested and made changes in her house, has improved that lot. So all those people were on notice. They made reasonable investment decisions based on the fact that if I buy this piece of property, the piece across from me isn't going to change. I'm not going to have renters come in. And we know, I mean, I hate to, to denigrate renters. My grandparents rented forever. But we also know that what do we have occasioned with renters? When they get evicted, all their property's at the curb. You're talking about a major thoroughfare here through the city. Major thoroughfare, Mesa and City Point. And so what he wants to do, he doesn't live in this neighborhood. So again, I'm being less polite than everybody else, but I'm gonna call it like I see it. And he made a bad investment decision. That's what he's telling you, and he's asking you to bend the rules to invite 3 more rental units into the city, or 4 if he's got 2 duplexes. And we know that that's not consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I can't find a compelling reason anywhere that council would want to do this. I think he thinks you're just going to just sort of ignore that. And I hope you don't. Again, this is a wonderful neighborhood. It's a thriving neighborhood. It's a vibrant neighborhood. You've seen how many people have turned out tonight. And it's a resurgent neighborhood. We've waited a long time in this community for the bounce back to the real estate debacle that occurred 8 or 9 years ago. And we're starting to see it. If you walk this neighborhood, you've got sidewalks through the Crescent Hills neighborhood. You've got investments on Grant Street. You got 2 new homes down from Powers Memorial that sold like that are beautiful homes. So again, call me a doubting Thomas. I think he can still make some money, even if he made a bad financial decision. And I agree with Mr. Zevgolis. Maybe he should have had a lawyer. Maybe he should have decided before he bought it.
Okay.
He should have done an assessment.
Let's not do any personal attacks. Thank you. Ms. Sharon, did you have anything to add? Or you're fine. Okay. Sandra Lockhart. Okay. And Mr. Jarrett, I think you've already spoken. Okay. David Phillips. Come on ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
My name is David Phillips. I live in Ward 3. I live at 141 South Mesa Drive, right down by the radio station. If you went by my house, next door, there is a rental duplex. It has been there for years. There have been more rental people coming in and out of there. They disregard my property. I've had the police there. In front of the rental property, there is a tree that is rotten. It's going to fall. It's not on my property. I've asked the man next door to cut it down. It's on his property. When that tree falls down, it's going to fall right on the power lines. And I've talked about it before, and nobody has paid attention. I've been in that house for 54 years. I saw what it was in that neighborhood when people lived there that worked in the factories. The older generation moved out, another generation came in, and now half of those houses are rental. And you go down on Mesa and Johnson and Jackson and all that neighborhood, you will see houses where people are parking their cars in the yards. There's trash everywhere. 2/3 of those houses are rental. They don't take care of their property, and it continues to go on and on and on. So now we're talking about it in the open. So if you guys want to come down where I live, on the corner of Johnson and Mesa, and take a left over there, you will see what I'm talking about. There were some nice homes down there. They were built for the people who worked at Hercules and Firestone years ago. That group has died out. It's the people that have got them now, that a lot of them are nice neighbors, but there's a lot of them that are trash. The people that live next door to me, I don't have any idea how many people live in that house. But I know that one time there was 25 people from Honduras in there, front apartment and the back apartment. They started fixing it up. It looks pretty good. And then one day they walked out and left it, and it still looks like a pigsty. And it's all in that area. Johnson Street, Gordon Street, Jackson Street. There's nice houses, and then there are those who look like rat traps. And I lived there in that house on Johnson and Mesa for 55 years. And I'm seeing both the con and the pro. And right now, basically what I'm seeing is the trash.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phillips.
You're welcome, thank you.
And I don't have anybody else signed up, so if I would go ahead and close the public hearing and move on. Do I have a motion on the floor? Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes, I move that we support the decision of the Planning Commission and deny this request. And I will say that, again, it's part of our article that,
Have a point of order.
Yes.
what?
She's to make a motion, not discuss, right?
I'm
Make
sorry.
She's making a motion and discussing after the motion. I think the discussion will follow the second, won't it?
It's not discussion. It's,
Wait, what's the
she's
point of
making a
order?
motion and discussing at the same time. I think it's appropriate
Has
to
a,
make a
has
motion.
a motion been made?
No, she's making a motion.
She is making,
You're making a motion.
yes.
Okay.
To deny, to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission, deny this request
Oh.
based on the Article 8.
And she started explaining why she
No, I
was
was just
making a
going to,
motion.
okay.
I think for a motion of this type, there needs to be a legal basis for the denial, and I'm guessing that's what she's trying to do.
But
That's
you have-
exactly
That's
what I'm-
during the discussion
Point of
phase.
the order.
No, I think for a motion to deny something like this, you have to give
That's in
as
your
a
rules?
part of the motion the legal reason. which
Never
is-
heard that.
What's
Okay,
that?
never heard that.
She never
Well,
heard that.
I mean, when you make a motion, you second it, and then you discuss it. And
Right.
then she
No,
can
but
say
she
it's-
How
said
about
it before
this?
she made the motion.
How about this? How about
You
we?
make the decision, I'm fine.
How
with it.
about we get her to finalize her motion, and then I'll rule on the point of order if she's gone beyond the bounds
Okay.
of what she needs to
That's
do.
fine, sir.
May I add where the confusion is when you vote. You don't explain your vote before you vote. You
Right.
do it under discussion. I think what Ms. Bailey did was absolutely proper, because she was still in discussion prior to making a motion. And I don't think that she did anything wrong.
Okay, let's just
So
move.
we'll
Thank you.
let her finish the motion, and then at the end, I'll decide. You want to start over?
Yes, thank you. I move that we support the recommendation of the Planning Commission and deny this request based on Article 8 of our approval criteria, which states that the proposed conditional use conforms to the character of the neighborhood within the same zoning district in which it is located, and this does not.
I second the
second.
motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bailey. And we have a second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Councilors of Golis?
Yes.
Excuse me. Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham? Mayor Shornack?
She did not ask permission, so that will go as a,
Yes.
Yeah, and I know we're in the middle of a roll call, but I did say I was going to rule on the point of order after she finished the motion.
oh, I'm sorry.
And I need to do that. Sorry to interrupt, but it was a proper motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Kalos, Mrs. Pelham left, did not
Yes,
have
that's a
permission,
yes.
so that is a
I know.
yes vote. Okay.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on with communications from citizens. And this is a time that if anybody wants to talk about anything, you can come forward. I have no one signed up for the communications from citizens. So if we don't have anybody, we will go ahead and move on. Okay, we're going to move on to reports of the city manager. R1, appropriate collected e-ticketing funds.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor, members of council, we have received a request from the sheriff's office regarding a request to budget and appropriate some of the funds collected by the Circuit General District Court with regarding to the e-ticketing. There are $38,000 to date that have been collected, and the sheriff's office has some outstanding invoices in the amount of $23,190. We did budget $25,000 this year in the e-ticketing line of the FY19 budget. So while the request was for $38,000, because we have budgeted $25,000, I would request that we, if council is in agreement, to budget and allocate the additional $13,000, and then if there's additional need later in the year, we can come back and budget and appropriate additional funds if needed.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to resolve to approve the appropriation of the 13, sorry, it's currently held by the treasurer to the city sheriff's office, and for e-ticketing to be added as a line item in next year's budget.
It's already in this year. It's actually in this year's budget.
13, so we didn't need that.
It's in the current FY19 budget
13.
as a line item.
Okay.
So just strike that last part.
Say what?
Unnecessary.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you run that back?
Okay, it's
I missed that one.
I didn't understand.
You didn't
So,
get it either?
resolved to approve the appropriation of the $13,000 currently being held by the treasurer
13 of the
to the sheriff's office. Period.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Actually, Vice Mayor Gore
Oh, she
had
did,
second before Mr. Zepgolis. Okay, discussion. Vice Mayor Gore?
The sheriff is here. Just want to clarify just before we vote on this. It makes sense to do 13 versus the 25. But is the 13 gonna? You didn't have that 25 earmarked for anything else, did you? Okay, so this is good to go. Okay, just want to make sure we. Okay, you need the not the full. We just need, okay. Thank you.
Councilor Pelham?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed the discussion. Can you say again?
So currently, there's $38,000 that's available, but we budgeted $25,000. So there's actually money that could cover the majority of the bills that.
Where did the 38 from the new budget monies that we put in, or was it carryover from last year?
Well, FY19, which is the current year, we budgeted $25,000 in that budget. To date, there's $22,248.72 remaining in that line item. So as opposed to budgeting the $38,000, Sheriff and I briefly talked at the beginning of the meeting, we would suggest, and I had this consultation with our finance director, budget appropriating $13,000, which would bring that close to that $38,000 that they had requested. That will cover their bills at this point, and then we need to later in the year, we'll come back and make a budget appropriation request for the additional funds if that comes up.
What do you have to pay for an e-ticketing? What cost incur? Yeah.
We have recurring fees. Every vehicle that we have has computers, modems, printers, scanners, everything to operate the program. I think the confusing part was we asked for this before the budget was ever done. And once the budget was done, the manager put in a line item for the e-ticketing. And we started it off with $25,000. So part of that money, that was most of that money right there that we had asked for prior to the budget. That's why.
And what is it? Why can't it be? Is it taken out of the $295, or
it's
is it from our general fund?
court fees, correct?
It's an ordinance that you guys
Yes.
passed, that the court collects $5 from every summons that comes to the court.
Okay.
And it's designated only for e-ticketing.
Also, the people pay the $5.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the money goes into this line item.
No, it actually
It goes in the general
doesn't
fund.
go into the
Fine.
line item.
Goes into the
General fund, and then tonight we're asking that you budget and appropriate some of those funds to this
Transfer it
line item.
You have to do it that
Okay,
way.
well, next year we'll have the line item itself, so
Well-
the $5 will go directly into that.
Well, we had the line item in the budget today, and we budgeted 25,000. So anything above and beyond that still goes into the general fund,
Okay, so we're doing it, going back. to that.
awaiting you to budget and appropriate those dollars.
Councilor Zepkalis?
What was the $23,190 that was, I guess, unpaid invoices, outstanding invoices? What was that amount for?
It was equipment to outfit the vehicles to be able to do the e-ticketing.
Okay.
Basically, computers, modems, and just all the equipment that has to go in each car.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Zepkalis and members of council, just as a reminder to everyone, the way that you all, by law, prepared that particular ordinance, the only thing that he can use that money for is e-ticketing, period. So it's either something for the vehicles, computer, that's all he can do with it. And by that same ordinance, he has to come back before you every time we need an appropriation. Just clearing that.
And there's nothing you can do about that because it tracks the
Right.
state code.
Yes, sir.
We went back and looked at the ordinance, and you couldn't change it if you wanted to.
Is there a special law that allows for the collection of the e-tickets to only take care of the maintenance of the machinery necessary to print these e-tickets?
I don't know if it's that narrow, but it's close.
Yes.
It has to be.
Okay.
It's actually
it can
that narrow.
only- It is that narrow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Gore and then Councilor Denton.
I understand what you're asking for and the background of it and why it's set up. My only question is, in terms of thinking about the budget resolution stuff that we had to do last year, why is this going to general fund and not a separate account? So that way they can have their money just pulled in one area? Because my next question is, how are you knowing what to separate out? Because I'm thinking about the law library, and that was partnership with the sheriff's office, the clerk of court, and I just, why is it not separate, and who is tracking? Because this is 38,000 total, or like, I mean, how do you know what you get per year?
By the number of tickets you write.
Well,
I understand that. What I'm saying is what's
It's all
going into.
tracked. It's all tracked from the clerk to the
Correct.
city.
yeah. And it goes
Every
into
one of
the-
those, court security, the library fee, e-ticketing, it's all tracked via a number from the clerk to the city.
Well, the library fee, we couldn't figure out anything about that money at all, so it was like,
So
there was
what we
confusion.
probably need to do with those is create a revenue line item in the
That's what I'm
budget.
saying.
So when the clerk gets it, they put it to a specific line item as opposed to it just going into
To the general fund.
I thought you did that last year, Ms.
Separating it
We did
out.
Well, not, I thought you just did that.
We did an expense line
Oh,
item, but
But
I
not a
don't think we did a
revenue
revenue
line.
line item.
Do you see what I'm saying? Keep it.
Okay, Councilor Denton.
I'm still not really clear on this. It's 25,000 in the budget. We've got 38,000. Are you asking to use all of that 38,000 now, or to put it in the general
No,
fund?
ma'am. Just the 13 to make up the difference between the 25 we already got through the budget process
So you want that 13,000 to go into that?
into that line.
Next year for line item.
Okay.
This year.
For this year.
This year.
The 13
This
plus
year.
25 equals 38.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions? If not, roll call, please.
For clarity, I'm going to reread the motion.
Please do.
The motion on the floor is to resolve to approve the appropriation of $13,000 currently being held by the treasurer to the sheriff's office. That is the motion on the floor that's been moved and seconded. Councilor Zepkalis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I have to apologize. I guess in my exuberance to get to the R items and to get this meeting over, we kind of skipped over UB1, which was part of your motion to move the Housing Authority item up for action. So I apologize. I was looking at the finish line.
And I had it written down, and I missed it too. So my apologies.
So we may want to go back and handle UB1 before we move on to R2.
Okay. So UB1 is in regards to the Housing Authority.
Yes, ma'am. The request from the Housing Authority to rezone the property on Westover Hill subdivision. Is that correct, Ms. Griffin? From R3 to R4. We were supposed to have a work session this evening with regard to that, and we decided to, through that motion, move it to UB. Staff is here to answer any questions that you may have. We conducted the public hearing at the last meeting. I'm trying to remember if we closed it or not. We did close the public hearing, so all that is left this evening is for council to take any action and ask any questions of staff that you may have.
Okay.
Highland Park subdivision on Westover.
I have a question and clarify.
Okay, should we make the motion and have discussion first, or
We need a motion.
because Vice Mayor Gore said she wants to ask something?
No, I want him to ask for clarity. I don't want to make a motion. I just want to.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Should we?
Well, he's doing the presentation. So
I think
question
that's
about
fine,
presentation.
and then somebody make a motion.
Right.
Then
Okay.
discuss. This is not debate, right? Question.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask City Manager or City Clerk for point of clarity. Council voted to have a work session at our last meeting, and the reason why we're doing it this way is because the the Housing Authority, the Commission, and their staff is refusing to come to the work session that was scheduled tonight, and so that this is a workaround for us to deal with the item because we're not having our work session. Just want that to be clear. It's not that staff or us is doing it this way. It's because they did not want to appear for the work session that council scheduled last meeting.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. We received an email from the Executive Director of the Housing Authority on behalf of the HRHA Commission members that they were not going to appear this evening, that they would be more than happy to participate with council in a work session or other type of meeting environment to discuss housing in general in the city, but they were not going to appear this evening at the work session.
Okay, I have Councilor Zavgolis. Did you push a button?
I pushed my button. No.
Okay, Councilor Pelham and then Councilor Denton.
Yes, and I personally went by the housing meeting last night to invite the commissioners personally, but I guess no one could come. Also, I'd like to know from staff and the planning commission, we just had an open session on rental property in that neighborhood. So tell me, what's the difference in this neighborhood, why we need more apartments that we say that, or duplexes for people that rent or whatever. I think that, because I'm for the 40, they want 68. All the justification was made because we don't want as many rental houses in our neighborhoods. What's the difference?
So this property is already zoned for apartments.
I know that, but
okay.
why do you want more?
So HRHA is requesting more to move people from Davisville to this property. With this rezoning, the Planning Commission and the City Council has leverage in order to require, or at least the HRHA can voluntarily proffer conditions where you would be able to see the site, to see the layout, the design of the site, and you would also have the ability to have some say in the design of the buildings or the building that would be on the site. If it was just the regular R3 and you just had 40 units, you would not have that privilege.
That should be okay. That should be okay.
That's the difference.
But it's more rental property. And did we ever come up with the explain again the deal with the criteria for the type of project it is? This is a low-income tax credit program through HUD. Is that, tell me the exact nomenclature for
So
that.
this is the low income, this is going to be financed through the low income housing tax credit. Is provided by a program through VHDA, the Virginia Housing Development Authority.
Okay.
It allows, in your packet, I believe, well, actually, you don't probably have that in front of you since this
Last
wasn't on the agenda. But
I
on
know
page-
what it's about. I'm just saying for the public.
So for the public, for a family of 4, the income would be allowed at 40% of the area median income at $30,960. That means persons that have a household of 4 people could not make over that amount to be able to stay in these apartments. 50% of the area median income with 4 people, you could not make over $38,700. 60% of the area median income, you cannot make over $46,440 for 4-person household. And I give you the 40, 50, 60 because with the tax credits, you have the ability to either have 20% of the units have to be at 50% of area median income, or you can have 40% of the units at 60% of area median income.
Thank you.
Councilor Denton. Ms. Griffin, when we had the meeting last time, we were a little confused. I was a little confused. And I was thinking all along from the previous meetings that we had that
Yes.
this was to kind of alleviate the problem in Davisville. But then the last meeting, I wasn't really sure when I left there that was the purpose of this. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you relate?
I can. I will say this. I can't speak on behalf of the Housing Authority or Mr. McCoy or Mr. Benham. I will tell you the conversations that I've had with them as staff and as the Planning Commission can talk about that. From the beginning of this process, we started this back in March with a public hearing before the Planning Commission. We've had several discussions between staff, the city manager, and the assistant city manager about this project, and it has always been to move persons from Davisville to another area. We knew that they could not do that all at one time, and so the idea was to have 68 units here in this space and to have the remaining to be in 3 different scenarios. And if you recall, you all asked them to come back to you with scenarios, and they gave you 3 different scenarios. So it's always been for Davisville. I think at the last meeting, I've since spoken to Mr. McCoy, and again, I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think in just all of the discussion, he may have not provided you with the information, and it may have seemed like it was not for Davisville. I've since talked to him and been reassured that this is for the persons that live in Davisville. Now, if the people in Davisville say, well, I don't want to go and I would rather go somewhere else, this could be open to anyone that wanted to live there, meeting the income requirements.
Okay, so if they built the 68 apartments,
Yes.
then 68 could come from the Davisville area. And then the rest would be get vouchers to go to other places in the city. And eventually you would shut down Davisville, because I thought in one of our discussions we talked about, since it's so close to the industries, that we would market that property for something more appropriate since it's close to industry. Am I right or wrong?
It's not our property.
Let me answer that in different parts because there was
Okay.
a lot to that.
All right.
First, they have not concluded and have not told you definitely what would happen to the remaining persons.
Right, that's
So,
scenario.
I don't know. I believe what council preferred and what you said you preferred were housing vouchers to go anywhere in the city or to go anywhere outside of the city. But they have not said they would do that. The next thing is, yes, at some point, there would not be anyone in Davisville, and those units would be demolished. you should know that the comp plan that you just approved back in April has its future land use as industrial. So our thought as a planning commission, as staff, is that this property should be rezoned to industrial, which it should be anyway because it's in the middle of an industrial area. But yes, that property then would be sold by HRHA.
Okay. One last question.
Yes.
We've had some issues lately on crime. And some of it does come from Davisville. Is there any concern that we should have as a council that by moving as many as we possibly can to this apartment building, which is only 2 blocks from Carter Woodson School, do we need to be concerned that that there is a possible danger there, or something that being so close to school?
Well, I think council should always be concerned about crime, no matter where it takes place. I don't know if there is anything that HRHA has in their regulations that says that persons that commit crimes or have any criminal background can or cannot stay there. That would really be a question for Mr. Benham, and I don't think you guys have had that conversation. I do think Councilor Pelham mentioned that at one of the work sessions, and I'm not sure if they've given her any information on that. And I know that crime takes place all around the city, so I can't tell you if there's a higher percentage at Davisville.
Okay, thank you.
I too am concerned about this. I think we were all really led to believe that those 48 or 60, how many ever, was going to be moved from the Davisville area. So to me, you know, my thinking was to have better quality housing for those people, because that is such an old development. From what I understand, it's really horrible. But I think down the road and with all the discussions, the last meeting they had with us, it did shift kind of gears to where, okay, well, who are they moving over in this area? And so, and how are they going to choose which person? I know they have a criteria as far as income, but it still bothers me is why aren't they doing something for all of those people to get them out of that housing into better housing? It's just still too many unanswered questions. And I think, you know, I don't know if we should maybe postpone or we should just go ahead. But right now, I'm still leery about what we were told at the beginning and where it ended up. And I wish they would have come tonight so that we could have gotten more clarity. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So I'm just concerned, and I too, like Councilor Denton, is concerned about the school and about kids. You know, sometimes even though a person is in the household, what we're finding out now is that, you know, there are people that aren't supposed to be in those apartments, but they are. And, you know, most of the time they're the ones that are causing the issues and the problems. So I think it's really concerning, you know, with the school being so close. You know, I'm just very leery of making a decision when I really don't know all the answers to questions. So, okay, but thank you for giving us that other information. Vice Mayor Gore.
Thank you. I do have a couple points I wrote down. I'll try to go through these quickly. I've been following the newspaper articles and things that's been mentioned since we talked when the last time we had the council meeting. I'll just reiterate what everyone said. Looking at the staff reports, our previous meetings we had with them, it was always I was always under the impression it was solely for Davisville, and the whole emphasis that I thought was to move them, and because it was highlighted for health reasons to get them away from industry. So that is why I thought in particular it was for Davisville, not only because that's how the conversation went, but because they emphasized that point. However, the last meeting, kind of what you're recapping, there was a moment where it was like, okay, and then next thing you know, when Councilor Golis asked a question, the next thing you know, they said, well, it could be opened up for market rate for anyone in the regional area. And I think that's when everyone was like, wait a second, this is not based off the documents that we've received, based off the presentation, based off of the meetings. That's not what we were under the impression of. And but I went, and the other thing is, I know people keep saying, well, this is a zoning amendment. It's just a zoning request. Your council is getting too deep into the weeds in this. You have to remember, and I'm not trying to be negative towards the housing authority, and I don't want to make this be not pointed to them. There was an issue with Langston Park and the Summit with people and moving back in and housing. Granted, I guess that was with the private entity that did that from based off of what I've seen. However, I want to do my part to make sure that I understand where people being relocated to, if they're going to be able to have housing, and do they have the means to be able to move back into a home. I don't want to have a situation where I'm voting on something I don't know those details. The other thing is, there was a lot of outcry from people from Davisville at that meeting. There was a lot of people here that had concerns about what this meant. What does it mean? HRHA did have 2 community meetings, I believe. They hand out stuff during National Night Out. But I think the thing is, we don't know how many people are going to qualify. Based off of the survey that they said they surveyed about half of the residents, and they gave out numbers who said they wanted to go and wanted to stay. And they said double that to give a perception of what the community might think. If you did that math, it was still under 40 units. So the question is, why do you need 68? Especially if you're saying that you don't know if everyone's going to qualify. Well, at this point, they should have a percentage of who they think is going to be able to qualify. The other part of that is, there's talks about having a HUD relocation plan that has to be approved before they can demolish or move people out of Davisville, if I'm understanding that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, so my thought is, now that I understand that's a component, why wasn't a draft? I know you can't answer it, but I would think a draft one would have been created first, and then you come to council to say, here's our vision for how we're going to relocate and demolish Davisville, and a part of reaching this goal, we would like for you to rezone this area. And if you don't do it, here's plan A, plan B, plan C, or whatever. There wasn't a cohesive understanding about what exactly they're going to do, because we have no clue about the redevelopment plan, the relocation plan. And the last thing I would say is about the council being able to have an ability to have some say into what is going in that property if they were to get the 68. The proffers, weren't they discussed with the planning commission, those proffers? Yes. So, and I think I asked you this the last time, I'll make sure I'm clear. In order for us to add on to those proffers, we would have had to agree on it prior to us having a public hearing and voting on it, right?
Prior to you voting, not prior to you having the public
prior to
hearing.
us voting on it.
Yes.
So we would have to, no disrespect to planning commission, but we would have to talk to them to see if we can adjust those proffers, because the proffers given to us are what they worked out with the planning commission, not council. And I think, their recommendations, and we agree with them, but that's still not, we're voting on something that we haven't even been able to add terms to. And the other thing is, at the last meeting, they said they weren't willing to even adjust those terms. So, am I wrong?
No, you're correct.
So I think that, I personally did not want this to be changed. I just went along with it because I really think we need to have a conversation. I've reached out to them through the clerk's office to schedule a meeting. I know I invited you, Mr. Dane. Hopefully I can have a personal meeting with them to understand more and ask these questions. But in the interim, I would like to see if it's possible that I want to see what the current status of the buildings are. They talk about health. People came here talking about the conditions. Since I've been on council, I've been to walks in, no disrespect to you, Ward 1. I mean, downtown looking at the historic district, I've never seen just do a tour of any public housing facility. And we talk about how poorly maintained they are. We talked about how old they are and how we need to remove people and stuff like that. So I would like to see what they look like. So I think that council should consider organizing a tour to see what those facilities look like while we make this decision.
Okay, Councilor Lemon Bailey.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure what you mean about the thing about.
We did the historic district. We have a walk every year down there.
Oh, you're talking about the Architecture Review
Yeah,
Board. Okay.
mhm.
But I was going to follow up on what Vice Mayor Gore brought up in regard to the conditions. And I want to make sure, because it seems like this has taken a turn that we don't want it to take, as far as almost being a controversial thing between the Housing Authority and Council. And that's, and I really hope we can mend the fence and have a productive discussion. Because one, they said that they didn't need to make more proffers, and then also it was indicated that if we didn't approve the 68 and the rezoning, that would eliminate the need for them to have anything as far as agreeing to do this and this and this. In other words, do you recall that? I mean, I'm not saying it was a threat, but it was insinuated that, okay, well, if you want us to agree to certain terms and you want input on how this is going to be, or the Planning Commission to have their input, that rezoning to 68 was part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if we didn't go to 68 and they just moved forward with the 40, there wasn't any need for any input from the Planning Commission or Council. Which, that's why I say, I really hope we can mend the fence and have a productive discussion, because I think all of us would like to see that happen.
The voluntary profit conditions are based on the rezoning. If they did 40 units, they can build the 40 units by right, and there would be no discussion of design or anything like that.
Exactly.
Now, what I heard them say at the meeting was they would probably follow this, but again, they don't have to.
Exactly. And again, I think we've had a bit of a communication breakdown, and so I'm hoping that we can get back to a better place in this discussion.
Councilor Pelham?
Well, I don't know what, the man refused to come here tonight. No one's showing up, and they've already showed us that they're gonna do what they want to do. And if we have standards of building, do we not?
Yes,
You can't just throw up a hut and say that we're gonna accept it as a community, correct?
No,
So
they
you're not
wouldn't.
gonna just throw up a house that looks like a backyard hut. So there are the standards that we have on file now would have to be adhered to. So if that would, we say that's our standard, so it must be good enough to build 40.
There are minimum standards.
Okay.
The standards that they are.
Standards that mean that he can use as well, correct?
He can, but
Okay.
you would get a better product with the voluntary profit conditions that they provided to you.
Councilor
And
Zepgolis?
Excuse me, ma'am, I really ain't quite
Go ahead.
finished. And again, the whole commission, as well as the CEO not showing up, showed to me not only did he use a not subtle, just telling us he's gonna do it his way. I just don't think that the council, based on the previous conversation about duplexes and how people were tearing down this and that, how you could consider even voting for this. Peers.
Councilor Zepgolis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've been over this so many times that I just saw a potential red flag that I never noticed before tonight. And I know the proposal was to rezone the subdivision from residential to high density, from residential high density R3 and highway commercial B3 to rental apartment R4. Now, I know there are 36 lots that are across Cypress Street that runs up to what, along Westover. I think it's 36 lots there. The 4 lots, that's in one block. But he also has 4 lots that front Cypress Street. And some of those lots are used, as commercial lights that face Winston Churchill Drive. So, for instance, that supermarket that used to be there, that actually occupies, I think, lot 12 and 11. 11's on Cypress Street, 12 is on Winston Churchill Drive. The other 4 lots that, I have no idea what they want to do with those 4 lots, but I'm beginning to have the inclination, if we were to change the 36 lots to residential apartment R4, I may be willing to do that on the 36 lots, but on the 4 lots, I may rather see that stay high density R3 and highway commercial. Because you have on one side of that, you got on one corner, before you get to Cavalier Square, you got the service station. And then on the opposite corner on Westover, you had a supermarket. And again, that's commercial, and I just keep waiting for somebody to either reopen that market or do something with it. Something needs to be done with it. And you have one home that faces Winston Churchill Drive, which would be a better value for that one home if it was zoned commercial, because sooner or later, when you're directly across from Carter G. Woodson, I would think you want to keep that the way it is now, commercial, because somebody may want those lots for commercial.
So the property in question is not off of,
They don't include the lot.
yeah, it's not fronting on Winston Churchill. It's Highland Avenue, Cypress Street, and Westover Avenue. And the commercial piece you're talking about is off of Westover, but it doesn't front on
No, but
Winston Churchill.
Cypress is on the other side. In other words, Cypress is
Yes.
part of that commercial block.
Yes.
And that's what I'm talking about. Because that old supermarket was there, fronted Mesa Drive, but its parking lot in the back ran to Cypress. And I'm assuming that anybody else that would want to build something would want 100, what is that, are they 50-foot lots each? Is it 100 feet deep between Mesa Drive and,
You mean Woodlawn, right?
Yeah, not-
Winston Churchill.
no, I'm talking,
Yeah.
not Mesa Drive, I'm
Winston
sorry.
Churchill.
Winston Churchill, between Winston Churchill and Cypress.
There's several lots.
There's there's lots 1 through 6,
Uh-huh.
and then 7 through 12. 1 through 6 would face, if he was going to put a home there, would face Cypress. 6 through 12, or 7 through 12 face Winston Churchill Drive.
So the lot that's B3, it's lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, Block 3 of the Highland Park subdivision. That is the B3 lot. It's 14,628 square feet for those 3 lots. And this is the one that's off of Cypress Street.
I think they own 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that not correct?
They also
They bought that from
own,
Dr. Durrani.
they also own the vacated Ashland Street and part of Cedar Street vacation. And then there's the larger lots, that is the R3.
Okay. I was looking at the diagrams that you had provided us
So-
before, and
so
it
what-
showed the areas.
What
I'm not
Councilor
seeing.
Zagolis is referring to is the properties that face Cypress.
Yeah,
That's lots 1, 2, 3, 4, block.
Block 3, the one
Right.
that I just.
So, and they're probably, and I'm just guessing, those lots probably have 100-foot depth, so there's probably a 200-foot block there, which you're talking about assemblage of the whole block and redevelopment of it.
I think it's 100 foot, I really do.
So I think so it may, if it's 100-foot, but ultimately what we have is those parcels were re-subdivided into larger blocks.
Yes, these are,
As part of Durrani's rezoning years ago.
I think they're 25 by 50 foot, each one of those lots were 50 foot deep by 25. And I mean, it's just like, I just feel that, what are they going to put apartments on that? Because you're rezoning that to R4. if
yes,
that's
you're
what's
rezoning
there.
all of this
On
to.
just those 4 lots.
Councilors of Golis, time.
Okay, my time's up.
Yes,
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Counselor Denton,
ma'am.
did you have?
Yeah, I just got one quick question, and it's for Mr. Laddies. You are chairman of the planning commission, am I correct? Do you have a recommendation after you all have studied all of this and you've heard all of us? Can you tell
You know,
us where you all stand?
I'm glad you asked.
We were very concerned about the citizens, as we stated in the comprehensive plan. And we too, or I at least, was at the last meeting, and I was concerned when I heard it was possibly not the Davisville group. You know, some will, some won't. I still think, and I haven't talked to him, Tavia has, but I still think there was a flustered moment there and he misspoke, but I don't know what he's thinking or what he said exactly or why he said it. All I can say is after sitting here, you know, and listening to all this, I think, you know, and I'll step out on a limb here, my recommendation would be for council to put forth their concerns, questions, and give it to, and again, I'm playing Tavia's role here, but, you know, in offering up her services, but it seems like we could pull the planning department and the planning commission could meet with the housing authority again, with or without council. It's up to you, but it seems like we have to get what you guys are concerned about. We already know, or I know what my concerns are, so I would add mine to it. But I think we do need to move forward because I think we're kind of, there is a little friction, and I think there's a little potentially, I don't know what's causing the friction, but you know, you can fill in the blank. But it's a disservice to the citizens, right? I mean, the people that are there, they deserve either an up or down. I mean, they deserve an up, but they deserve something instead of hanging in the balance. I mean, they've been dealt, I'm assuming, for the most part, a bad hand. And we're trying to help them. And that's what we're supposed to do, is try to help people who can't help themselves. Yet we're back and forth, and I'm not coming for whatever reason, and we don't understand because we thought this was just for them, and now you kind of told us it might be for others. And do they qualify? Well, didn't they qualify to get in the first one into Davisville? So again, to answer your question, my recommendation is you provide what your questions are to the planning department, if indeed they agree, city manager and the planning director, because I'm just, you know, a volunteer here, so my comments are worth what you pay for them. So anyway, that's my thought, and we'd be glad to help try to negotiate something, but the first thing is we need to move somewhere, do something.
Okay. City manager, would you like to
Well,
weigh in?
one of council's options is to send the item back to planning commission. You have that as an option available to you. And you could allow the planning commission to work through the issues that have been raised this evening, if possible, with the housing authority and bring back the recommendation. And if I won't speak for the attorney, but I think because you have conducted your public hearings, when it comes back, you may not have a requirement to do that, but we would have to look into that. But you can send it back to them for them to review once again and try to work something out. At the end of the day, whether it comes back or not, they have the right to build 40 units. So they could move forward with that absent any of our approvals. So I think it really comes down to whether council feels the need to take action tonight and end this, or send it back to allow some of these issues to be worked out and discussed, to bring a recommendation back that may be more palatable to council and address the issues regarding the connection to Davisville.
Okay, Councilor Pelham.
Yes, and the other thing is, when I was away, I was in Alaska, and I got a call from two of the residents in Davisville, and I was really concerned as well, and so staff can take this back to Mr. Benham as well. It wasn't him, but his staff member, Mr. Coy, had encouraged the citizens, one of their options would be to get a petition and get the persons to sign it, so that they would not demolish Davisville. Now, if that's not sidetracking something so that I won't be blamed for it, I just think it's a blame game that they were playing. That is, I told the young lady, after you set up in a public forum and tell people that we want to demolish Davisville because of health reasons, there's no way I would think that the city would vote to keep it up because you open yourself up for litigation. But you can't play both sides of the stick and try to be the good guy. You got to state facts as they are and stop playing this misinformation, lying, or whatever you want to call it, because it's just been a lot of misinformation given to the residents as well as this council, and it's just not professional, and it's just horrible, and it's creating all this tension for no reason. So whatever they do, what they give me, I like to see it in writing. I'm not believing anything out of that office. I like to see whatever the HUD requirements are that they're going on, because there have been too many untruths spoken publicly, and I believe that's why they're not here tonight. So we got to do more than just accept what they say to make sure we get the right answers.
Councilor Denton.
I'd like to make a motion that we do send it back to the Planning Commission. We do, I think there are a lot of us that have questions, so let's get our questions together, send them back to the Planning Commission, let them take another look. They'll talk with HRHA, whatever, and then come back to us again. I think we all are a little confused. We need some clarification. So I make a motion that we send it back to the Planning Commission.
I second it.
Okay. Madam Clerk, this was the first motion, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Excuse me.
There's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Councilors of Golis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
No.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
passes 6-1.
Thank you. R2.
Okay, getting back on track. R2, Mr. Butler's here this evening to call it his annual discussion with council to get authorization for several of the VDOT projects to move forward. I'll let Mr. Butler go through the 3 requests he has for you this evening.
Good evening. As Mr. Altman said, your R2 has an A, a B, and a C component. They're all related to VDOT programs and applications we submitted many months ago that got approved and so forth. We will need voting action individual, one for A, one for B. They both require resolutions. They are quite different, but they're still VDOT programs. And the final one, C, we just need to be the vote to get captured in the minutes. This is something we have to provide to the finance director in our future budget stuff. So we don't actually need a resolution for this item. Item A, Mr. Anderson is going to talk to you about that. He's more of an expert on all the subject matter on this particular grant than I am. I know about it, but he's the one that made the application for us. And that was approved.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Item 2A is for the Transportation Alternatives Program. This was presented to this council back in November when we applied for it, and we were fortunate enough to be selected through the competitive process to be awarded this grant. This is a federal aid program. It's in the amount of $949,579, and it's an 80% federal aid, 20% local match. So the point of this program is to help local sponsors fund community projects that expand non-motorized travel options. And for our particular application, we took our bicycle map, which is part of the comprehensive plan. We divided it into segments, and we applied for those. Phase 1 had 6 segments. Phase 2 had 6 segments, and of those segments, there were neighborhood connector loops. We went over this before, so the action tonight is to for 2 parts. The first is to grant the city manager the authorization to sign the agreement, and the second part is to post the local match contribution that we need, which is $189,000. I have you were included a copy of the agreement and the Appendix A, and the Appendix A is the project financing document, which shows the local match and the federal match.
Austin, what did you say the 900,000? How much was that?
The 949,000 is the total project cost.
949, okay.
Of that, the 20% local match is what the city has to provide to fund its portion of the project, which is 189,916.
Okay.
The
And then-
80% is the federal aid portion.
And that's the 759,663.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, this is a reimbursable program, so we actually have to spend the money up front on eligible project costs, and then we receive the 80% back.
Right.
So, as some of our other programs, like the primary extension program where we used to pave Route 10 last year,
Right.
we do need the 759,663 to get the project started, and then we expect all of that back,
Right.
of which the 189 would be our local contribution.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Councilor Zevgolas.
I was going to make a motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to have a budget amendment in the amount of $759,663 in order to participate in this 80% reimbursable funding project.
Second.
Okay, have a motion, second. Vice Mayor Gore.
For discussion?
For discussion.
In terms of clarity for this, because the recommended motion, I know council can make any motion it wants to, but there's a habit of reading the recommendation. So R2, A, B, C, just to the city attorney's point, remember before we were talking about making sure we had exact stuff in there? Where is this transfer coming from? Is this coming from the capital projects fund? Like, where is this money coming from? Is this just authorize a budget transfer in the amount of, but where is it coming from and where is it going to go to? The 2 is to create a new account, but where is the money coming from?
The 759 amount would have to be an appropriation. It is not in our current capital fund account, and it would be an appropriation. Really, we're borrowing it. We will reimburse probably 550,000 of it back once we need the money to start the project. And it's sort of, we're asking for a budget loan to be appropriation. We can start the project, we can fund the project, and as part of our reimbursements, we'll put money back into the budget, back into a revenue account that can go back into the budget. The hit that we would take is no more than about 189,000. So the 759, you're looking at
900.
almost 559,000 of it, 569 would be coming back. So it would be in the same fiscal year.
Right.
Am I saying that?
Yeah, you're saying that right. And
So
what we've done,
It's not in our current capital fund.
what we've done in the past is we set up an expense project account, and a capital project account, and a revenue capital account. And as soon as we get those reimbursements, we work with the treasurer's office. They put it right in that, and they match up.
Right.
That's what the 100%. So in this case, as Mr. Butler mentioned, it would be an 80-20.
So you'd be setting up a new account for this project? For this?
That's not that. That's not.
It's coming from there.
It's coming from the TV.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, he didn't go hit it.
Can you cut it off?
Here.
It was like messing up earlier. There we go. So that never happened. So you're just gonna create a separate account to do like what you're saying, right? So I guess my question is the 189, and I guess it's to city manager. So this wasn't a budget. So we're doing an additional appropriation outside the budget cycle for 189. Essentially, because this is not, I get the reimbursement
No,
aspect, but our
949.
portion, no, the 940 something is
In the
is
end,
a,
that's
yeah, because it's reimbursable part,
The
but,
appropriating 759 amount to start with. As the project progresses, we get the reimbursements back, we get 80%. It's only going to end up, if we do the project at the full cost that we estimated at, and we do the entire thing, we estimated 969,000. It may not be that. That was an estimate. But you're going to get reimbursed 80% of what you spent. So it's really only a sunk cost of maximum 189.
Yeah, so it's a,
Still
I get it, it's still
Start with the
appropriation.
750 so we can do the work to get the
Correct.
revenue back to cover those costs.
Right, I get what you're saying, I understand that, so I'm not counting that, that's why I said the 180. So essentially, what this narrows down to, after the whole money transfers over, comes back over, you're asking for a budget appropriation outside the budget cycle of 180 to add to
189.
189.
Really 190.
A maximum of 189.
And is there any reason why this wasn't included in the budget process that we just went through?
When we went through the budget process, we weren't selected as a project yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't win this until after.
Yeah, it was actually voted on in June, so it was right at the time that the budget, I think the budget was actually passed by the time we knew officially we were getting it. And we didn't actually get the agreement until about 2 weeks ago.
Okay. I just wanted to know, so I would just say, so this will be a budget transfer from the general fund if passed, and then you would create your account like you normally do.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I was
Oh,
going to
excuse
ask
me,
the same
I think
question.
it was Councilor Lumen Bailey. had
No,
her
my light
up.
was on before hers. It really was.
Councilor Lumen Bailey and then Councilor Pelham.
It was on
Yeah.
before
Thank
hers, like, actually.
I was just going to also say that as a friendly amendment to the motion, since we already have the motion on the floor.
I think I have to redo that motion anyway, because I left off R2B and R2R.
No, you're.
Well, we have to
You
separate
wanna
them
separate
anyway.
You got to do them separate? Okay.
But I was going to,
Okay.
Mr. Zipgolis, I was going to say, we need to also authorize the city
It says
manager
approved projects,
to sign all
R2, A,
appropriate
B,
documents.
C, but you have to do it separate, okay.
Councilor Zipkolis?
Did you hear that?
Did you hear her? She is asking if it's okay to add the authority for the city manager to sign the contract for add that to your motion. Is that acceptable?
It's
I was just hearing they all had to be separate.
It's a substitute motion, actually.
Is that, it's a substitute?
Yeah.
Can I add a
Okay,
friendly substitute
wait,
to make sure
okay.
she puts general funds?
So she's making a substitute?
I just heard we got to do them one at
Yeah,
a
no.
time.
No, I'm,
So let's go ahead and get mine through.
we
and
do
then
have to
ahead
go
and
do
make
them
a
one at a
motion.
time. What I'm saying is we need to do the transfer and say that we're authorizing the city manager to sign the documents.
Right.
No, it's separate.
The resolution, no. I think we have to do that for everyone, don't we?
It
I
says
think
approves
Councilor
entering
Zipkolis
into a
is-
signed standard project administration contract.
Yeah, you made it for the first one. You want to make it for all three, but they're saying for their purposes, they have to have them separate. She's making a substitute motion to add some language as to where it comes from, and Vice Mayor Gore's interested in being more specific than that, right?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. If you to add to yours, can you just go ahead and include from the general fund to what you're saying, so I don't have to do it friendly?
Right, so the transfer in the amount of $759,663 from
Would we
from
not
the
have?
general fund and authorize the city manager to
But we
sign the.
would still have to conduct 3 separate votes.
Yeah, we do.
Correct.
Okay,
But I'm just saying.
okay.
that
She's
for the-
clarifying the
Alright.
first one.
That's
I'm there.
Let me add one
yours.
thing, what I heard.
Bless
You
you.
don't want to have a separate vote on the city manager's authorization to sign the program administration agreement and the budget appropriation that funds the project. That needs to be one action vote.
Right, that's
Yeah,
what
that's
I
what it is.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I was
like
just
that.
doing.
Yeah, she just
Okay.
did it.
A, B, C.
Yeah,
Okay.
Easy.
okay, okay.
Madam
So that was my
Clerk,
substitute.
did you get all that?
Did you second?
I'll second her,
Second.
her substitute motion.
Okay.
I have a comment though.
What I have is motion to approve the budget amendment of $759,663 to participate, excuse me, in the reimbursement program. I'm sorry, after the $779,000 from the general fund to participate in the reimbursement program and authorizing the city manager to sign all appropriate documents. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we have it set, do we have a second?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Any further? Councilor Pelham?
Yes, and Mr. City Manager, you saying that we have 759,000 out of the general fund to set aside for this project initially?
I believe that we do, yes, ma'am.
And would that get us in trouble as far as the 5% that we're required? Does that have anything to do with that
I don't
percentage?
think that it would, but if it does, then we will bring this back to undo this. Because we don't want to get ourselves in that type of trouble.
Yeah, and will it affect it also if will we have to take out the 189,000 as well? You need to let us know that as well.
Yeah.
That's $200,000. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but I don't know what
I don't
figures are.
anticipate that the 180 would get us into any trouble, but we want to make sure that overall, but I don't believe that it will.
You want to make sure the 759 doesn't too.
Correct.
And this is only for the pavement from Route 10 all the way down to Prince George, right?
No, this is for the bicycle lanes.
The bicycle lane,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And we're actually going to be doing this over 2 fiscal years. So we're getting into the agreement this fiscal year, but it actually goes through fiscal year 20.
Okay.
So if Mr. Altman finds out that there is an issue with the ceiling limit on the bar from the general fund, we could potentially reduce it
Okay.
and defer some of it to FY20.
But it's for the bike lane just on Route 10 or throughout the city?
No, it's throughout the city.
The city, right, that's what I make sure.
There's 12 segments.
Okay, I just need a refresher. Okay, for the whole city,
Yes.
okay.
Okay?
Madam Mayor, I want to clear up one thing. And it addresses what we were just talking about. We won't get in any trouble on the balanced budget as far as the rainy day fund because we got federal money that's coming to us. So you're allowed
State money.
to account that as income. When you got solid money like that, revenues that you know you're going to get 500,000 of that back,
Right.
then that offsets any kind of indebtedness you got. So we're not really putting ourselves
Yeah, we
in
just
any
have,
indebtedness.
we just have to make sure because we're front loading and we're paying in advance.
Exactly.
So we have that to be able to pay in advance to
Yeah,
receive
yeah.
the reimbursement, that's all.
Okay, no other discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Zevgola?
Yes.
Excuse me, Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Counselor Holloway?
Yes.
Okay.
Section 8 passes 7-0.
And do I have a motion to approve for B? Approve
I
as,
said that was a substitute motion. We just voted
It
on
that was for substitute motion for R2A. We are
Yeah.
now
Okay.
on R2B.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
And R2B, you'll see, this is a completely different VDOT grant program for improvements. This primary extension grant, we've enjoyed this for about 4 years now, and what we're doing, we've done 3 times before. The voting action and everything, this is not new, but we have to do it each time we get a new grant, and we have to do it each new fiscal year. So this particular one is called primary extension, and primary extension sounds a little silly, but to us, the primary roads are your Route 10s and your Route 156 and your 36 corridor. Those are our primary road corridors. And these primary extension funds that are VDOT grant funds, they are what has really helped us in being able to go into our neighborhoods and spend the monies that we put into the neighborhoods for pavement rehab. Because if we had to take care of all these primary extension roads, the main corridors, the major and the minor, 156, 36, Route 10, I might have missed some, but you're getting the point. Those are our heavily traveled roads, and they get the biggest beating all the time with traffic. This is what we paid Route 10 with. We got 100% grant on that. We had to front the money, we did it, and we're getting all the reimbursements now. They're rolling in. So this, and we had one that we got approved last year, which was Winston Churchill corridor, which again, we're not having to use our capital pavement management money solely to go do Winston Churchill. We got additional funds to help us out. So the funds we got in our paving program that were appropriated in the regular budget, we can focus on, things that we want to select. We also have some reimbursement in local streets too, but I don't want to make it too complicated. But the primary extension program, we got an additional grant here to do the further on down Route 10 from where we ended 2 years ago, just about where the reservoir is at Winston Churchill with Virginia American Water Company, through the traffic signal, down to Hummel Ross and back. Now, within 3 years, we've paved this entire corridor. And I like to look at that as a 12-year life cycle that we got on that pavement out there. We've been able to pave that and afford that through this primary extension program. It's been very beneficial to us. This is another one of those cases. The primary extension program, we got this area Route 10, we got awarded a $358,718 grant to pave that, 100% reimbursable. We work with VDOT. We've been very good at finishing the other projects. So when we submit new applications, we're a good case. We get looked at real good because we do what the program is set up to do. So anyway, the voting action that we're asking for the primary extension, 2B, is to, we got awarded the $358,000 is to we have another project administration agreement. It's a different grant. We have a different one that the city manager has to sign, and we send back. We have to send it back, and we have to send back proof that we have budgeted for this. And we have a year or more to use this money, and so forth. But we have to show that we are going to meet the conditions and requirements of it. So the voting action is for the $358,710 to increase the paving program budget and to authorize city manager to sign that agreement. And this one is a resolution, just like the other one is also a resolution. So, I might have went in more detail than I needed to, but everybody...
Detail is
we're
good. Thank you.
You've approved these 3 times before, so...
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Johnny.
And I'm going to keep standing here because the next one I have also.
You're a true engineer.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make the motion to approve enter into a signed standard project administration agreement for the paving surface treatment of Route 10, eastbound and westbound lanes from Winston Churchill to Hummel Road, identified, in addition to the identified requirements to meet the primary extension state of good repair paving program. Is that enough? Is that good enough?
And authorize the city
Well,
manager.
we got
And
to authorize the
City manager.
appropriation.
And also authorize the
Those 2
city
steps
manager to
are-
sign all the appropriate
The
documents
agreement
related
and the
thereto.
funding, appropriate the funding. And we, we'll figure out how we get money moved into this, and it's 100% reimbursed. We already just had that discussion. We can actually do this over 2 fiscal years, but we only got a year to do this money. We can't let it go.
Right.
If we
got
get
enough work.
behind and don't do it, they can say, you didn't use our money, we want
They'll
to
take it
deallocate
back.
you, and we're going to give somebody else.
Yeah.
That never happens to us, but that's the threat we face when we don't act
Okay.
on things, okay?
Thank you, Johnny. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, roll call on B.
I understand. Did you, Councilor Pelham, amend your motion to include the approval city manager?
Did you put that in?
I was writing.
I added it. And
Okay. Councilor Zapgolis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham,
yes.
Mayor Shornack.
Yes.
Councilman Bailey.
Yes.
Councilor Holloway.
Yes.
R2B approved 7-0.
Great, let's move to 2C. This is another, this is a budget action that we have to get from council so we can present the minutes of the budget action to the Director of Finance. And these reimbursable programs, this one happens to be for a revenue sharing program, different grant program. We get these, as we go out and complete projects, we get revenue coming in. It's a 50-50 program. We have neighborhood pavement rehabilitation, we have neighborhood curb and gutter projects, we have neighborhood drainage projects. Each fiscal year, we have to get the council action that when we get that revenue, it comes in and it goes into a holding account called state funds. We want to reappropriate it back into the capital account, and it helps fund the other pavement, curb and gutter and paving project. So that's what this voting action is that you know what we're doing with the revenue when we get it, and we're moving it as a transfer into the capital account, which is the expense account for the other projects. It's where the funds started originally, but we get it back through a revenue stream from the state. And we have to show the budget director that council understands it and they're okay with it.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Do I have a motion?
I would like to authorize the appropriation of the Virginia Department of Transportation Revenue Sharing Program reimbursements to the city's capital improvements program projects for various streets, sidewalks, and drainage improvements, and to authorize the city manager to sign all the appropriate documentation thereto.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Lumen Bailey?
I just wondered if you needed us to specify an amount, because you meant, or not. Are we good? Because you'd mentioned that before. If not, then we'll just, you don't have the, okay, well,
Yeah, we
forget
like
it.
to leave it open because each fiscal year, as we accomplish things, it will be a different amount. It's kind of,
Changes.
sometimes we get a lot more done than we thought we were going to get, and that reimbursement amount will be higher because of that.
Right,
And
okay.
It's all based on how much money you give us in the beginning to work on capital projects.
Okay.
So I would not want to be.
All right, just wanted to make sure. Thanks, that's all.
Okay, all righty. Roll call, please.
Council Zepgolis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yeah.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
R2C, approved 7-0.
Okay, R3, efficiency technology study.
Madam Mayor, members of council, you may recall during the budget process, we approved funding for an efficiency and technologies review study. We had received some information from VCU regarding essentially a proposal to undertake such study, which had different options within it regarding cost. What staff is asking is for council to provide input as to what the scope of services you would like to see, so we can then create a more concrete scope of services to be able to move forward with, which will also drive our discussion of how we have to, if we have to bid this project out, how we would procure it. So you have within your packet the proposal, and what staff is recommending is that you take the request and review it and provide input no later than the next meeting as to what items council would like to see in the scope of services, so we can begin to develop that more clearly and move forward with it.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
I want to make a motion.
Vice Mayor Gore.
I'd like
She
to
had her
make
light
a,
on.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that council agree by consensus to the scope of work to allow city administration to provide procurement options for city council to review and approve after the administration has received council's feedback by the next scheduled council meeting. This will allow us to come back in October.
Second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, we have a second discussion, Councilor Pelham and then Councilor Denton.
Well, how can we change this motion to say that if we want to do this efficiency technology study, that we be the point of contact instead of staff?
Can I answer that quick? So if you remember at the last meeting, council said that I could work with the city manager to try to come back with some ways that we can move forward. So we talked, and it was important to everyone that everyone had a voice. So just for clarity, what we're asking is to look at the proposal, and you guys give back your comments and feedback so we can consolidate it, and then we'll come back to council with the whole entire plan, what council is saying. So him and I will still consolidate the information to come back, so you have me and the administration.
So if I
And
would
then,
like,
and then in that proposal, when we come back to say this is the consolidated amount from council and everybody else, we'll say based off of this feedback, we recommend that council bid it out, do an RFP, negotiate competitively, or whatever the options are for council to tell us how to move forward. So it's just to get more clarity about what it is you want, and then so we can give you procurement options in October.
okay, so that'd be one, okay, so that'd
So
be a suggestion.
you're the one that's going to be meeting with,
Well, I've been the person meeting with March because I put this on the agenda. And at the
Okay.
last council meeting, you guys said that when VCU presented, I had VCU come and present, the request was, and I'm not being funny when I say it, I remember you specifically saying that whatever they say to me to copy him. And so we have been speaking together about this, and I think we're in agreement about doing this so that way everyone's feedback is collected, and we come back in October is the goal to say, here's the feedback, here's the options, council, what do you want to do? So no one is taking charge of the whole thing. It's equal.
So, yeah, I'm okay with working through it. Would be a little leery of it being a complete council.
That's
I would
what I'm
say
saying.
I'm not saying complete council,
That's what I'm
but
saying.
She said
let me
POC.
explain myself. When the survey is done, if the person has a question, I don't think they should ask the staff who have to be a part to be the ones to implement the change. You could easily say, oh, no, that's not right. And when you're paying, when they get the perception that you're paying them, I think, I don't trust auditors, basically. So auditors feed into pleasing the staff. You need an arbitrary person to be on the.
Oh, I see what you're
advice.
saying, and that was the concern that we addressed earlier on, because I heard it from several other council members. I don't think that we're at that stage yet right
Well,
now.
I know we're not, but I
Yeah,
mean, that's what
but-
I always want you to explain. It's not that
Well, VCU, when they presented, they understood that council had a desire to make sure that it wasn't done like the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
And they said that, and the way the administration wrote in the CAF, it says council, so I think that's clear. We're just trying to make sure we do the partnership now. So I guess to your concern or question, I guess that can be answered when we talk about procurement options and we know which way we're gonna go. Because right now, for all you know, we can do a contract and then council at the table with him, and we don't know that yet. But we're just trying to work together to get options to get back to council.
in order for us to move forward, we have to have an idea, because I heard several different people say they'd like to see an employee survey, they'd like to see this. We need to have an idea of those options presented, what council collectively would like to see in order for us to move forward. I think the POC piece is something that we need, that obviously would need to be discussed down the road, but right now, we just need to get the scope together. And my thought on the POC piece would be a council committee to work with staff, the manager's office, to work through this project,
Right.
but not.
That'd be fun.
I don't honestly see it when you say staff. I think it ought to be decided between the city manager, period, and the council.
Right, that's what
Well,
And when you do that, I think rather than bring it back to council and then discuss it here, we ought to have a workshop on it. And that way, everybody can have their inputs, city manager and the rest of council.
That's what we're trying
rather than to come back and then debate it and then go back 6 or 7 times before we decide on something, to have a workshop. But I think the city manager.
That's what we're trying to do in
Okay.
October, but we need to have some initial information so that way we know
And that's
what to
okay.
do.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
but that's a plan to
fine.
come back in
Oh,
October to
right,
do what
right.
you're saying. Mhm.
Right.
Counselor Denton, did you have?
Yeah, I like the idea, and I did learn a lot from the presentation from VCU, but how much, Mr. Altman, how much do we have in the budget for this?
We budgeted $165,000.
Okay,
And we'll probably say double of that.
yeah.
Well, the proposal by VCU's proposal is magically $164,500, absent any
Really?
options.
How
Magically.
did that happen?
But
Must have got a hold
given
of our
our
budget.
procurement requirements at that level of $164,000, we would have to bid it out. We can reduce the scope to get it down below 55,000. We can do
And you don't have to bid it out.
competitive procurement. But if you're going to go to that 164, then we're going to need to put together a bid package and put it out.
And that's why the feedback is so important, because what he's talking about with the plan, what she drafted was just based off of what the feedback I gave her. So, and if you look at the back of the proposal, she said that's the main point. If you add this, that's that.
Options.
Right. So maybe the proposal that we have now, you don't like something in it, and council takes it out. That might change the cost. And so we don't know what kind of procurement options to look at. Maybe a multi-phase thing, or maybe do this or do that. It all depends on what you guys want, so we can get an accurate price.
Okay,
So
but
we
now
can work with.
if we get an accurate price, does this mean we're looking at spending this money in the near future? Or is this something on the back burner that we're going to be talking about for a while? And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. I'm all for doing this. I think it will benefit the city. But I want these CAFRs done. I want 16 done. 17 done, 18 done. I think we as a city need to know where we are financially before we go out and do anything. And I heard this from you all last year, last July, that we put things that were in the budget on the back burner until these CAFRs were done. And I would like to see this put on the back burner until these CAFRs are done. Mr. Alvin, do you have a figure of the things we put on the back burner last June or July when we did the budget, and there were certain things we were not going to spend until after the CAFRA was done? 16 CAFRA.
I don't have a total. In anticipation of the question, I have a list. It's not totaled up as to how much it was. I don't know if Mr. Dane remembers approximately how much it was.
I don't know the full amount, but that's only from last year. This year we have 2 or 3 positions that we're holding also.
Yep. Yeah, we had about, it was about that 165,000 from this year, plus roughly 25, 45. Well over 200, 300,000, $250,000 to $300,000 worth of positions from FY16 that were not filled. I assume pending the CAFRs when y'all park these items as a result of that. So we still anticipate our CAFRs being completed on time, with 18 being submitted in November on time. We've overcome a major hurdle to get. We were probably anticipating 16 here shortly, but we're still on target, we believe, for all the CAFRs to be completed and submitted by the November deadline.
So by the end of November, say.
This November, yes.
We
ma'am.
hopefully will have 16, 17, and 18.
Yes.
That's a month, 2 months, not even 2 months away.
Right.
Can't we put this on the back burner? And in the meantime, keep it alive with research. I would love to work with Vice Mayor Gore and seeing how we can make this work for our city. But I think right now,
That's a plan.
I think what we're the thought is that between now and, let's say, whenever we're ready to go to bid, and whether that's November or December, we have to move forward with clarifying the scope of services. Once we clarify the scope of services and have an idea of cost, then we have to figure out how we're going to procure it. And let's assume for a moment that we're going to do the whole thing, and that's the $165,000.
Okay.
We've got to put a bid package together. We have to put it on the street. We have to have it out there for 4 weeks at least. Get proposals back in, review those proposals, conduct interviews, make a recommendation to council, and to enter into a contract. So that's going to take time. So what we're talking about right now is that front-loaded piece to clarify the scope of service as we're moving forward. I think with clarifying the scope of service, we will be in a position, I don't think we'll be in a position to bid this out before November. I think we'll be continuing to work towards getting it clarified and nailed down, and in a position to talk procurement November, December, starting that piece, or, so I think we'll...
Not doing, all right, one more question.
Yeah, we're not spending any pennies yet.
But I'm going to spend some.
Okay.
You said in just a little bit, few weeks, we should have the 2016 CAFRA?
But we're hoping in the next few weeks we'll have the 16 CAFRA complete.
Okay, do we go back at that point and those things that we froze in 2016, do we give our fire
Priorities?
chief the,
We can't do any of that 'cause
his
we don't have a
assistant
bond
fire
rating.
chief?
We don't have a bond rating.
So
We don't need a
what
bond rating.
what I'll say is I'll throw rain on everybody's parade or a fire hose on the parade. What I would suggest is that we wait till 18 is done. So 16, let's assume for a moment, just for grins and giggles, 16 is done at the end of September. And then that means 17 is done in October and 18 is submitted on time. We're only talking 3 months worth of time. I wouldn't want to make a commitment with 16 without knowing how we ended 17, because 16 really only tells us how we ended 2 years ago. Let's say we ended in the red, but then 17 brought us to level. So I would just say, let's wait till they're all done, which will be November. We'll still be in a position, and then we can consider knowing what the field looks like, how much money we have to then consider these items and the items that were in the current year budget, and how we want to make recommendations about moving forward at that time. I would recommend we wait until 18 was done. That would be my recommendation, because then we know definitively where we stand today financially.
Chief feels comfortable with that?
Well,
He works for me.
He feels comfortable with that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we've waited this long. I might take it that point, but I would much rather.
That's just 2 more months, Chief.
I'm patient.
Well, we gotta have 18 done by law, November 30th.
Have you talked?
Okay, thank you very much.
Jasmine, have you said anything before?
Mr. Kalos? would that require another
Christina,
vote
did
by
you have
them?
something?
Since
Did
they
you have
already
your light
voted
on?
on that,
Uh,
2016?
No, I was
we can
just,
vote
I
to
guess,
change it?
Voted on what?
we already have a motion on the floor, right?
Yeah,
And a
but
second.
we're
And-
still
And I guess,
discussing.
I just was going to suggest, I mentioned it under my breath to the city manager, as far as, depending on what's going on, it would make sense potentially to have, involve VML if we have to go out to bid, and see what other localities, see whom they have used. I'm not saying VCU isn't a great one to use, I'm just saying it would be good to get an idea from other localities through VML.
I just want to add that we may only, the initial study may be less than $80,000. And if it involves the college, you don't even have to go out to bid to that. There's certain things under Procurement Act, if it's for certain special education or disability or things like that, you can do a single contract, like a 6-month contract. In fact, they said they could do them all in 6 months, the whole 9 works. I think we need to settle on the one that gives us the most information, which in turn may lead to other areas. In other words, whatever one says where our main problems are, and CAPRA would have been one of them. That's one thing that we'll learn is where we failed back then. And, I know why we failed, but we don't have to mention that. And some of those people are gone now, we don't have to worry about any of it. But we got handled with the ball. And the bottom line is, I agree with the motion. I'm going to vote for it. And I do think that, but I think that once we get this, that will help us with the CAFA. That's all I want to say about it. And it is not just to find where we've been wasting money, but it's structural integrity. That's very important, and that includes council and any of the departments. Maybe they can do with, instead of 4 part-time, maybe 1 full-time would be the best answer. We don't know. But I have a lot of I have more confidence with the VCU people doing it than I do to go out to bid and have these for-profit firms that do that and give you what they think you want to hear. We don't want that. We want the truth.
Well,
We want to know where our problems are. And I know the city manager wants it just as bad as we do.
And that's why we need to clarify the scope, because then the clarifying the scope drives a number, which then helps us determine how to procure. So we've got to figure all that out, but first step one is what's the scope, what is it you want to see, so then all the other things can fall into place. And that'll
Right.
take some time, and we've got time, but we need to start the process at some point.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Madam Mayor, I call for the vote.
I hadn't talked
Oh, I'm
yet.
sorry.
I hadn't,
Okay.
so I would like to say
Well,
something.
are you making a motion to
Mhm.
call the question?
Yeah.
Or you?
I think he's backing off.
Are you, you're not trying to end debate?
Yes, he is.
That's-
Yes, he is.
Do you object to
No,
her
he said-
continuing debate?
Okay. No, yeah, I'll defer to the mayor. She says she
Okay.
hasn't spoken yet. If she
Right.
wants to speak, I'll let her speak.
Thank you. I have a couple issues with this. First of all, there were a lot of positions as well as other things that were delayed by this council that most people agreed that we would not spend any money until we knew exactly where we stood as far as financial situation after receiving the CAFRAs. But yet we continue to go and do something that, to me, is not really high priority. Okay, does it need to be done? Yeah. Okay, but to me, it's not high priority right now. I think having positions filled, having staff available to do their job is more important than having an efficiency technology study. I feel that we are going back on what we said, that we weren't going to fund these positions as well as other things in the budget until we got the CAFRA. Now, we want to spend $165,000. So to me, and I do have also a problem with council having anything to do with the implementation of this. I'm not saying that doing the research, I'm just saying the implementation of this study. To me, when
Madam
you're
Mayor,
dealing,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
10:30?
It's just about, so.
Okay.
I wanted to
Yeah.
let you know we're just
Okay.
about out of time.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I feel that we really do need to let.
Point of order. I just have a question, point of order question. Since we are about at 10:30, I don't want her comments to run over and then the meeting adjourn like it did last time. So can we make a motion to
Yeah, I
keep
think-
going now before
That's
it
what I
I think
goes
so you
over?
can continue.
Yeah,
You
that's
should
what I
make
mean.
a motion to extend the meeting.
So this is our last thing we have to vote on.
And then you can adjourn whenever you decide. I had my light on to advise that too. Otherwise, it just stops.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we adjourn to finish
We
this last,
adjourn?
not adjourn, I'm
Finish
sorry,
the meeting.
that we extend the meeting to finish this item. And I think that's the last item that we have on the agenda, and a report of the clerk, and that's it, those last two things, and then we're done for tonight.
Well, city attorney
City attorney too.
report.
Just finish the meeting.
To finish the
Just
meeting.
finish the meeting.
Okay, I just said that, finish the meeting.
Second.
Sorry.
Roll call.
Council Zepgolis? Oh,
It's a yes.
I know. Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Another concern I have is for council to be having their hands with staff on the implementation of this efficiency study. I have real issues with that. To me, the staff reports to the city manager, and I don't feel like council should be involved in anything that comes from the findings of this. Sure, do we want to be informed of what the study comes out to? Absolutely, yeah. But when it comes to staff, to me, it's the city manager's bailiwick, and he, the city manager, needs to take care of administering whatever follow-up that they may have, or suggestions of somebody doing their job or more efficient. And so that's the two concerns I have, is that we're really breaking protocol when we said that we weren't going to be spending money until we got the CAFRAs, and now we're doing that. And also the part where council is dipping into what I think is the city manager's position. I don't have a problem with city council getting all the research and bringing it back, but as far as when these people do the study, I feel like it's the people's, that it is the ultimate decision of the city manager and how he wants to implement any type of recommendations that they may have. That's not really what the city council does. So those were my only two comments. Okay. What? Excuse me? Did you say something?
I said,
Okay,
hello,
thank you.
my light was on.
Well, so was Vice Mayor Gore's too.
Mine was on first. I always have to tell you, so I thought I'd tell you.
Thank you for that comment. Okay, Vice Mayor Gore?
Thank you. I just want to, before I say this, I'm not trying to have an argument or have this meeting go bad. We've had a good meeting. City manager captured everything appropriately. Thank you for doing that. I think he captured everything we're trying to do, and I think he addressed some of your concerns, Councilor Denton. Just for, and again, I'm not trying to start anything, but just for the clarity, because I see staff writing, not staff, reporters writing, but there's really no protocol to this, so we wouldn't be breaking anything. Just a reminder that there's, as highlighted, like 2-3 points that staff works for city manager, but the city manager works for council. And so the thing that I want people to remember is this, I think people are mixing up the intention and how deep this is gonna go. This is to look at our services and how effective we are as a city, how sustainable we are as a city. This is not talking, I'm not trying to get deeper in the weeds for staff results of how he's going to address staff issues. Overall, people need to remember this is for a collective assessment of how responsive we are to constituent needs, how our employees are feeling, our policies and procedures, our guidelines. There's a number of examples that we can go through, I'm not going to, of why this is needed, because I think we're having a good night. I don't want to bring that down. The other thing is, I think it is council's job to work with the city manager to figure out what's going to come out of the results, because some of these things to implement might need council to pass a policy. It may need for us to pass a code or something like that. It's going to require there to be a collaborative process to figure out what. Some things may be under his bailiwick, some things will fall under us, some things will be a joint partnership, and I think that's all a part of it, because essentially if there's going to be funding needs of the technology part of it, so they're going to have to come back to council. The other thing I would just remind people is that the goal when I pitched this the first time was to make sure that we come out with this plan around the same time as the audits were caught up. Because then in the finance department, if you look at your proposal, is excluded from this. Particularly because we did not want to impact the
time.
Time for what?
Okay,
This is your third time speaking, and I'm sorry, it has to be cumulative. I apologize. So cumulative.
Where is that rule at?
Robert's rules. Mr. Kalos, that's your question.
Okay.
Because this is new. We haven't done this before.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There is a motion on the floor,
There's
yes.
a motion on the floor. It's in debate. So
I'm fine with that. I'm just curious.
No. That's a good question. I'm surprised no one's asked it yet. But your charter says
in the absence of rules.
In the absence of specific rules, Robert prevails. And your rules do say that everyone has to have an opportunity to speak before anyone else can speak, but it doesn't say anything else. The 10-minute cumulative rule comes from Roberts, but it only has to do with debate. It doesn't have to do with the Q&A earlier, but nobody asked, so I didn't interrupt about that. And the 2 times also comes from Robert's rules, which prevail. Now, you can waive your rules to say that in the absence of rules, Robert's rules prevails, and you can take that out.
So included in my
But
time.
no, actually, you know what? You can't.
I'm not going to do that. No. Just out of curiosity, when I was answering Councilor Denton's questions, did that count against my time? Because I was responding to her questions, not having my discussion point.
Counts.
It shouldn't count because it's not the same thing.
Well, I did when this came up. I agree with you that your time should be tolled, TOLLED, when someone else interrupts you with a point of order. I think your clock stops.
Yeah, I
Now,
usually turn it off and note the.
I don't really know what you're talking about with your.
Oh, and
did
I was
your
engaging with
questions
her,
count?
answering her questions. I was saying, did that count against my time?
Did
or-
she ask you a question and you answered it?
Yeah, that's part of the significant part of my time.
I
was
don't
gonna-
know, were you debating or discussing?
I was providing clarity in the presentation part, but it's just a question. I'm good. I'm just.
No, that's a good question. I'm
Because I
not-
mean, that's where most significant of my time was
I
going
don't
to
know
answering.
about that
I
part.
considered it, and you're right, that
It was
is where
answering
the
hers,
the
not-
bulk of your time went. I considered that she was discussing and debating. She considered that she was responding to Counselor Denton.
Yeah, as a part of the presentation.
Right.
And that's something that I
We
would have
haven't-
to
yeah.
interpret, and I really don't know. If a point of order was raised, I would ask the question. Fortunately, it wasn't. But that's where that comes from, and, you know, I don't know, I don't remember what you were doing, but if it wasn't debate, discussion, then it should not count against you.
I'm fine, because everybody knows how I feel about this. So can you just give us the answer for later on about looking into that, if, the issue about presentation counting your time at a later date, that's all.
I mean,
Well, it doesn't say it in the rules, but it's
Even this
Article
isn't in the rules
7,
either.
Article 7 of Robert's Rules of Order.
Right, but he just said he didn't have the clarity on it, so saying at a later
No,
date, can you give
I think if you're in discussion or debate
Mhm.
and you have the floor, it's 10 minutes cumulative. If somebody interrupts you, makes a point of order, it stops. If someone asks you a question, generally, I don't think that counts
Okay.
against you either, because that's really part of their discussion. And they don't, but I don't remember the circumstances.
Well,
I'm
but,
not-
okay, and I don't want to belabor this. From where I'm sitting, if Counselor Denton makes a comment and the vice mayor responds to her comment, that's not answering a question. That's still discussion and debate. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that's my perspective for all of them.
But if it's a question, that's what I was saying.
Okay, if she specifically asks you a question, that's different. But if she makes a comment and you comment
Well-
on her comment, that's not a question.
And that's a good point too, because really discussion isn't asking each
Right.
other questions.
That's what's got me.
Well, I get what you're saying, but if you're asking, in her comments, you're saying, is this what we're doing, or is this what the plan? And then that, she's not asking a direct question, she's asking a question that needed to be answered via the
Okay.
presentation.
But discussion.
that's a later
No, I get what
conversation.
you're saying. Yeah, I get what
Discussion
you're
isn't
saying.
really asking each other
Yeah.
questions either.
No,
So.
I get it. I get it.
Okay.
Just gotta
I'll
iron that
fine-tune
out.
it.
So.
No, I
I'll
don't
fine-tune it.
disagree
I
with
get
you.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so, Counselor Pelham and then Counselor Lemon Bailey.
Okay, the one thing is, I would like to say this is a one-time cost, and to compare that with personnel costs, which has benefits and is a reoccurring cost, is non-comparable. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Also, this money we already budgeted for. And I think it was almost a unanimous vote that the budget passed for fiscal year 18-19. So you voted to pass it, and that was it within that budget. So that meant that you agreed with it at that time. So people, of course, can change their mind, but it was, it's already there. The money's been allocated, and you can't compare apples to oranges. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Lemon Bailey.
Thank you. I just, very briefly, I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again, especially since I was recently at the executive board meeting, and I specifically asked Virginia Municipal League Executive Director about this issue. We could, for $0, ask the Municipal League to come and just do, it could be part of a work session in regard to just in general, I'm not saying it's the same as what we're discussing right now, but I just think it would be very helpful for us to have a discussion on positive ways to move forward and communicate, and I think they could really give us some good suggestions, and they won't charge us anything. So I'm just going to put that out there again. So, that's it.
How far would you go with that, though? Virginia Municipal League is also our insurer.
Yeah, but I'm talking about something similar to what we do when we go to conferences and go to training sessions, but this would be tailored specifically for us or our region or whatever, but something, a subject like, for example, ways to have effective meetings, and not just topics like that. They will come to the community and give that if the community asks them to come and do that.
And they would tell us
What does that have to do with efficiency
how to
study?
run government. That's why we go to their classes. That's why we go to the National League of Cities. But
Okay.
they're not going to be and put themselves in a position where they investigate.
No, I'm not
Well,
suggesting that. I'm not
Okay.
suggesting that at all.
So this is separate
Okay.
than the efficiency study?
Yeah, that's what I said. This is not the efficiency study. This is just,
A comment?
in general, something that could be helpful to us and that doesn't cost any money. And I think it could definitely be helpful to us as a council. That's all.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay.
I think this council ought to sit down and have conflict of interest sessions and a Freedom of Information Act and Procurement Act. I think we could have workshops for that. And I'm disappointed that we have not had any annual advances.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we have,
Motions on the floor.
Madam Clerk, would you read that again, please?
Current, excuse me, the current motion is for council to agree by consensus to the scope of work to allow city administration to provide procurement options for city council review and approval after administration has received council feedback.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a substitute motion.
Substitute motion.
I would like to recommend the council agree, exclude consensus by majority to the scope of the work to allow city administration to provide procurement options for the city council review and approval. Take the word out, consensus, because you don't get a consensus, it fails, correct?
I'll just take a friendly, I'll accept your friendly, or.
It
Well, I
would
think
be a
she's right.
friendly amendment, that's
Well,
fine.
I mean, I think you still have to, I think it's a substitute
It's a-
motion, or you make a new
I thought we were
motion.
just
She can
doing
make
like
it
a
my
head
motion, that's why I
nod.
said-
That's what.
Yes, please take that out. Okay, thank you. Well, substitute motion to.
I accept it. Since you seconded, you can just
Yep.
vote.
Whatever it takes. I'm taking out the word
Taking out the word
consensus.
consensus and replacing that with the
The
majority.
of council.
So this would be later, right?
It's the same thing.
Okay, are we ready for roll call, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Excuse me, Councilors of Golis,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
No.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Shornack,
No.
Councilwoman Bailey.
This is just for investigation, right? Yeah.
Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
motion passes 5-2.
Okay. City attorney?
I want to start, pardon me. I want to start, Counselor Pelham, you had asked you'd made a point of order earlier when
I did.
Counselor
Okay.
Bailey was making a motion, and I'm not sure I fully understood it at the time, but I thought about it and I did a little bit of research. I didn't give you a very thorough answer, and I think you had stepped out.
I did.
I ended up sustaining the point of order, but I think your point's well taken, and I want to explain it a little bit because it's a complex area and I kind of glossed over it because I
Thank
didn't
you.
have it at my fingertips. But the issue, I think at that point, if I can find this, had to do with denying a conditional use permit. And I think Councilor Lumen Bailey knew that there needs to be pretty specific reasons when you do something like that. And I didn't have my finger on it, but I did find the code section. The Virginia code section is 15.22208.1, damages for unconstitutional denial by locality of certain permits and approvals, one of which is a conditional use permit. So I think, and I don't want to speak for her, and she correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she was being cautious in making sure that the reasons for the denial were getting into the record. However, to your point, I don't know, I might have sustained your point of order because it didn't necessarily have to be in the motion. I believe you were saying the motion should be either deny or approve, vote on it, then talk about it. And your objection was that she was discussing it while she was making the motion.
Yes.
And I had her finish. I think you stepped out. She did finish. And I thought, and I ruled, and I still think it was a proper motion. I don't think there's anything wrong with her doing that. However, I want to say your point is well taken. And when what would have had to have happened was there would have needed to have been, during debate, something along the lines of, I suggest that we didn't, this is a counselor talking, anybody could have done it, but that, we deny this, for reasons, and of course I've lost what the reasons are. But there are reasons that are set out. Council has to find an application for conditional use permit will conform to the general character of the neighborhood. It won't detract from public health and safety of the neighborhood, and so on and so forth. And that's what she tried to set up. And I think all you were saying was you can do that as part of your discussion. There's been a lot of I don't know if there's been a lot of litigation, but there's certainly a forum for litigation in this type of thing. And Mr. Altman has all the experience in the world from the world he came in before there, so I might be off base, but I don't think it necessarily has to be in the motion. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it was sort of belts and suspenders, but your point too was well taken. It just would have put the burden on her or somebody else to spell out those reasons. She just chose to do it up front, but I didn't give a full answer, and now I have. So I don't think that was an incorrect
Okay, thank
point.
you.
As Judge Baker used to say, and you heard him, Mr. Gould, Ms. Piss, you're both right.
All right.
I never quite understood how a judge could do that, but it worked well. Now, getting to what's actually on the agenda, you have before you, and I will be as brief as I can and try to be briefer than I just was, but if you turn to the city attorney report section, you got one page there, and this shows you what we've done. And it is Rule 1, good place to start, and it is a clean rule. And we went through this process, and Councilor Pelham actually is the one who suggested that we do it this way, and I thought we got off to a really good start. And then we've had a whole lot of issues, and we haven't had the 10 minutes I said this would take since then. So no harm in that, but if you look at the bottom of that first page, I've got in brackets that above rule was approved on 6/26/18, and then I've got in parentheses that this and other rules are to be adopted once all rules are approved. The intent here for me or whoever is to go through these, and every time you approve one, whoever will do a clean version. And this one page will grow. And every meeting you come to, the idea is that suddenly you're going to be able to see all of the rules in order. So if you go to the next several pages, there are a bunch of rules. And I didn't do that because I was trying to make up lost ground. That's a good thing. I did it because a lot of these rules play off each other and they reference each other. I'll give you a couple of really quick examples. If you look at rule the 101, the one we actually approved, that says that the city attorney is the parliamentarian. If you flip over and look at rule 104, it talks about appeals from decision of the chair. And that implies, if not states, that the chair, whether it's the mayor or the vice mayor in her stead or some other presiding officer, is somehow the parliamentarian. That doesn't make sense. That's one of the many places I've said over and over, we've got a lot of contradictions here. So my cure for Rule 103, thank you, see, I did it too. 104. For Rule 104 is simply see Rule 101. But I have to show you Rule 101. We've done it. So I got to show you Rule 102. And the easiest way to get through these is to look at the last rule on a page, the clean one, the proposed clean. And if you read that and you like that and you want to approve it, you can vote on it and approve it. So we got 102, 103, 104, we got 105, 106. And then we go into the twos. We've got 204. And then we skip to 209, and the reason I did that was because one of these earlier rules references that. Also, while you've only approved one rule so far, you did talk about several others, and you got very specific, and there was I don't want to say consensus, but there was certainly a majority. I think it was unanimous. If you look at Rule 105, this is one of the few places, and I hope yours copied in blue and in red, but if you look at 105, you actually have 4 versions. You have the original as it stands now. You have my first red line. You have where you all looked at it and said, wait a minute, we want to make a few more changes. And this is probably one of the more, I told you most of these rules I don't think you're going to disagree with because they simply streamline and make things shorter. And less redundant and therefore shorter. Boy, that was redundant and long. But 105, if you look at the blue, this is what I think you all told me that you wanted. It talks about excusing somebody from a meeting, and then somebody said, well, you can't make somebody vote. So Robert's rules, you're right. You can't make somebody vote, but you do have the ability to discipline each other under Rule 209 if you don't like how something's going. So that's a change I made. That's a clean vote. Again, you've had these in your packet. I don't know the status. You've also had a whole lot of homework recently, and you got some more tonight. So I understand if everybody hadn't gone through it. But I think these are at a point where if you wish and if you like each rule, you can approve them tonight. I don't want it to go this way, but if you approve them, what you're ultimately going to be left with when you're finally done is this first page that's now going to be 5 or 6 pages, and you're going to have the ability to adopt. My hope is that you would adopt them in toto because you've already approved them. But this won't be your last shot. In other words, you'll have one final time to get a clean version, and you'll be able to go through it and go, hey, wait a minute, we need to tweak this word or that word. So you're not adopting, you're approving. If you like these, if you like the clean version, which is the last version in each section, you can go through these and vote on each one. You can go through these and vote on all of them together. I'm not sure if and how you want to do it, but you could start with a motion to approve, all the rules listed here, and then you could ask me some questions and discuss, and then debate, and then, vote on all of them, and you'll make a whole lot of progress if you do that. I said I would limit my presentation to 10 minutes. I didn't hear a beep yet, so I feel like I'm within it, although she's probably not timing me. But I think I'm close, so I'll stop. And,
Okay. Councilor Kelley?
Yes. Now, do we recommend changes now, or do we just make a motion first before we discuss?
Well, since I've made a presentation, it sounds like you have questions. I think the best way right now is to ask me questions.
Okay.
And then I can do what we did last time. If you want to vote and there's a change, you see something and everybody agrees and that's how they vote, or a majority agrees, when I do my clean version, I'll make that change. You're not stuck to these.
Okay. Number 204 is just simple, just change July to January. At the first meeting on D, the second sentence, at the first meeting in January, of course, because now that's when we meet, okay? And then change the clean version as well.
Okay, are you at the very bottom of 204?
Yes, sir.
On the second page?
The first page first.
We'll go to the back page, because that's the
Okay.
one you should be looking at.
And the clean version has July 2.
No, yeah, but I just want to work off the correct one. So
Oh,
you're
okay.
saying That
Okay.
should be January.
Yes, sir.
And I agree with you.
Okay. And the Rule 209, if any council may, the clean version, if any council may be excused during a meeting, by informing the presiding officer notice that he or she will be departing or leaving.
Now,
I just don't think we need permission from people. We all grown and professional.
right, and I want you to know where that came from. Again,
It's been a
that was-
part of forever. It's been a part of the rules forever since I.
Correct, and you know me well enough to know my answer is never, because we've always done it that way.
I know that.
But one of the things I wanted to do when I did these rules was to change as little as possible while making them better.
Okay.
And so some of the language, it's not how I talk, it's not how I would say it, but whenever I had an opportunity to make something shorter, I took it. This is
Okay.
one that didn't get a lot shorter, but you're right, it still uses the language with permission of. That's certainly something that when it comes time for a motion, whether it's on all these rules or one of these rules, you can make a motion that rule say, and how are you proposing it, that it says by notifying?
Informing, or whatever, I just put by informing the presiding officer, notice that he or she will be leaving. Whatever way you want to rearrange, I don't know if the others agree, but
With acknowledgement of the presiding officer?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think
I mean, like, in other words, the presiding officer acknowledges that
that's giving
you're
permission as
informing them
well.
and they're acknowledging.
Here's,
So you don't get into any disagreement about a person leaving. If they have to acknowledge it, that's giving permission to me as well.
here's your problem there, though. And I'm not taking a side, I'm the scrivener.
No, it's no sides.
One of the rules we did talk a lot about was 105, which is voting. And the problem with 105, and it's not a problem, but if you look at the clean version, and when I say the clean version, I mean the latest
Bottom one, yeah.
version. Yeah, the bottom one. So that is voting methods. It talks about, votes by roll call, ayes and nays. And then it goes on in the next sentence and says, no counselor is excused from voting except on items, and you can't change this is in the charter, except involving official conduct or the counselor's financial or personal interest. So if a person could just leave and say, hey, I'm going, and acknowledge or get their attention, then they're essentially excusing themselves from voting. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But then one of the big changes I made after we discussed it last time was about whether a person can or can't be compelled to vote. So I suppose if you think
get the
somebody's trying to
consequences.
get out of voting by simply saying, hey, I'm going to the back,
Right.
and you can't stop me, I suppose that's something that council could take up as discipline. But the only reason I bring it up is there's two kinds of excuses. One to be excused from voting and one to be excused from sitting in the meeting.
And each one of us would know that, so if we want to be disciplined, so be it. But if not, the onus is on you to make that decision as an individual counselor, not the presiding officer.
I think based on the things you're raising, the best way to do this, and I'm fine continuing to answer questions on each rule, but I don't think you're going to be able to vote on these en masse. I think we should probably, when it comes time to vote, which I hope you can do tonight, I don't think it'll take much longer. I know you're getting worried. Yeah, I would do them each one in the order that you have them here. And then that way, if you make a motion, Councilor Pelham, you can say this is how you want it to be. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. Because I don't think, unless you look at all of these and go, they're all fine, I think that's the only way you could vote on in a group. Or you could, the ones that everyone thinks are fine, you could do a group there. You
Yeah.
could even pass the ones that you're raising issues on, and I could play with those with, blue line. So I'm just trying to present ways we can do this efficiently.
Vice Mayor Gore.
Yeah, I agree with her, sorry, her changes she made earlier, but for 209, I think that warrants more discussion too, because I had a concern about, earlier in prior meetings, there was debates over abstaining and if you could or couldn't, and there's been some instances where some people were allowed to abstain when they didn't have.
I don't think you can. I don't think under your charter you can. I think if you have a financial interest or a personal interest and you don't, then I think you must vote. That's your charter.
Right, but, okay, but I agree with you, but in the past, within last year, some change, it has happened where people abstained and they didn't necessarily leave off of here. They literally, it's in the minutes, they abstained. And so I agree with that point, but my concern is with this, remember that debate when I left out the meeting? If I'm not physically, not me, I'm just using me as an example, but if I have left the building, I'm not here. And if someone doesn't want to give me a blessing to be excused, I'm not going to be on, I do not want to be on the record voting for something when I'm physically not in the building. I might have an emergency, I need to get permission then to leave. I'm going to leave. You know what I mean? So that's why I have a concern about the permission part. But I feel like if you are, I get the whole, if you're in the back, that means, I get the yes part. For example, if I have to get a drink or something, I know a vote's coming up. Hey, that's my prerogative to go in the back, but if my name is called and I miss it, then it's going to be a yes. That makes sense. But in the instance that you're not physically here, I don't think that those should count as yes. And I don't think you need to get permission either because you're not here.
Like if you have to leave the meeting early?
Yeah, I mean, whatever, if you leave the meeting earlier, for whatever reason, if you're physically just not in the building, then the point about your silence being a yes because you haven't been excused, that's what my issue is. Because that's happened before. That was a discussion
Okay, but
at the last meeting.
but that's what we've taken out.
Right, but it says you have to get excused. You have to get permission. So if I leave to go rescue something from my house or whatever, and I don't get permission, and it's a serious vote, and I'm not here, I'm gonna get counted as yes because that's how it is.
Well, no, it's not. It's not anymore. If you look at 105. 105 is that was the one Councilor Pelham raised initially that started this whole, hey, let's do these bit by bit.
Right.
Silence is gone. If you look at...
So what does it just say not present? Is that what's going to be there? I get what you're saying, but I get what you're saying, but where is that in writing that's, even though the silence is gone, what is going to be in its place?
Personal interest.
But that's in there anyway. That's
what
charter.
I'm saying.
That's charter. But silence is gone. I mean, it's not gone because you haven't approved it. You haven't even adopted
No,
it.
I get what you're saying, but and I understand what you're saying, but I guess you answered my question, but to the point, let's say since silence is gone doesn't mean it's a yes now. What is going to be in there not present? What is going to be documented? Because now there's no point to even get permission at all if the silence is gone. 209 is irrelevant.
But where he puts no counselor is excused from voting except on personal interest. That means when you leave the building, you must have something personal going on that you have to take care of. So that doesn't mean
personal
that.
interest is like defined
doesn't-
personal interest.
Yeah,
by
like
law.
we're talking about
Conflict of Interest Act.
Oh, conflict.
Right.
Okay. I
So
thought that
you
was
see what I'm
me.
saying?
Emergency or something.
209 is
Well,
irrelevant.
your point actually, in looking at all of 105, your point actually is the last sentence in that. That does tie into 209.
Correct.
Yeah. But your vote's not going to be a yes.
That's what I'm saying. What is it going to be?
It's going to be you're not there.
That's what I'm saying. Not
It's gonna
present.
be
Is not
absent.
present going to be there?
Yeah.
But that doesn't say that here. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right. You wanted to say that? I thought you
Record
wanted,
that, right?
I thought you didn't want silence to be a yes.
I don't.
You
But it doesn't
can't
say
have
what
it both
is.
ways.
No, I'm not saying have it both ways. What I'm saying is,
It's absent. It's Elvis
but
has
it
left the
doesn't say
building.
that. That's what I'm saying. It's either yes or no, and you say it's clear as absent. I mean, you're acting like it's so simple, but I guarantee you there will be debate on what it's supposed to be documented
I'm
as.
not arguing with you.
I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna do that, then
I'll ask the clerk. It says all other votes, are recorded as ayes and nays. If you don't vote, it's not recorded.
I don't know, some of this is just common sense, it seems like. I mean, like you
Everything
say,
is
if
common sense
someone
until we
has
get
left-
here.
I think you're absolutely,
Everything is common
left,
sense
then
until
they're
we get
absent.
here. Because I literally left, and I promise you, the last meeting we had, the special meeting we had in the other room, I left out. And then during this meeting, another council member brought up the fact that I had walked out the room and that my vote should be a yes.
and that's probably right. under the
Correct, but
current
then you
rules.
said, well, it was about certifying, so it didn't count under that. Do you see what I'm saying? I didn't get permission.
That wasn't a vote.
Correct, but hey, this is an example. I think everything is cool with 209. I think 209 need work.
Can I?
Well, we can
Yeah.
Call for the vote.
No.
Do you make a motion?
Yeah.
Is this
First,
all of it, or
Counselor,
just each
Counselor
individual one?
Zepgolis.
wanna
Did you,
call for the
Counselor, Counselor Zepgolis?
Yeah. Mr. City Attorney, yeah, I understand. I agree with your assessment that they have to vote unless they got the personal interest of that. I'm looking at 209,
Yeah.
excused during meeting, and it currently reads, any member desiring to be, desiring to be excused while council is in session shall obtain such permission from the presiding officer. That doesn't necessarily mean the mayor, it means whoever's presiding over the meeting at the time. But then again, it addresses nothing that what if the mayor wants to be excused? Who grants her the permission to be excused? The vice mayor?
I told her I
But,
was going to be
yeah,
excused.
now, here's what he's suggesting changing. He's suggesting changing to any councilor may be excused with permission of the presiding officer. If that's the case, then if I call to the mayor and say, Mayor, I can't come to the meeting tonight, like when you give your excuse why you're not going to come to school, would you do that in advance, that I'm not going to be at school? The same thing, then does the mayor, if I called in from someplace, or any counselor, and said, I can't make it tonight, oh, no, you can't be excused because we got important votes tonight, you got to be there. Or by the same token, why would a counselor,
A meeting session.
it's, that's what I'm talking about, that even doing a meeting, there's nothing to prevent any counselor from walking out of a meeting.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And every council in here maybe has done it at least once, maybe
Right.
in the
Well,
4 years.
To answer your first question first, 106 addresses and would continue to address if the presiding officer is the mayor, which it is by default, she may designate another counselor to preside for, so she can be excused
Right,
too.
right.
But if you all, this is your thing. I'm
Yeah.
trying to track what you've allegedly been doing.
I'm
But it's
saying-
only during a meeting, it's not ahead of time.
And we don't cite any punishment if somebody does that, though. If somebody walks out of the meeting and decides not to participate, I think it's up to the voters of their district to make the decision whether or not. And if that person does it 3 times, then I don't know.
Well-
But if you don't have a law that gives the punishment,
Well, you do actually. You have to go behind, like if you look
it
at.
says may be punished, but it doesn't tell you what the punishment is. We have never passed any ordinance that punishes somebody for ethical violations or anything.
Well, this isn't for ethical
Does it say
violations,
punished? I
but
thought it says discipline.
discipline.
But what is
Well,
discipline?
Discipline. Maybe discipline, but again, it doesn't tell them what the discipline
There is
is.
a difference between being disciplined and being punished. I mean, if someone
Okay,
just says.
okay.
It's the same thing.
Now,
I think in the House,
Counselor-
like the Congress, they put something in the record book, a
Counselor-
disciplinary letter or something, and
Okay, Counselor Denton.
I would
Counselor
just
Phil.
like to say, I don't think we're gonna solve a whole lot of problems
No.
here tonight.
Let's just
think we should
get
make a
on with
meeting
it.
on that.
I think if, rather
think
than
it's
having an
intended to.
open meeting and being taped, if we need to discuss these council rules, we can have a work session to do this, and let's do it then. I mean, we can be talking about this till 1 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm sure there,
A work session?
you want to keep talking about
No,
it?
I don't want to keep
my-
talking.
my-
No,
it's
I
my
don't
turn.
want to keep talking, but the work sessions didn't work, so I was just going to
Counselor
say that we
Pella.
just give him the feedback.
Counselor
I
Pella.
You just called
Yeah,
me.
give him the
Counselor
feedback for the next
Yeah.
meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that the rules 101, 102, 103, 104, not 5, 106, 204 with the change in July to January be approved tonight, leaving out Rule 105 and 204.
Yeah, I don't want to do this.
We haven't
209.
accomplished anything.
Don't you want 209?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I
I
haven't
don't want
accomplished
Don't you
anything.
105 and 209 be left out, and all the others be approved.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
You're
that's
getting
what
a lot done, and you can come back on these others.
And just bring those two back and everything else be approved.
Oh,
It's, everything else, those, we all agree on the other ones, we might as well get them out of the way.
I think,
I made a motion, can I, you see if there's a second or not?
I'll second it.
okay. Council Denton.
Second.
I just think tonight, it's 11:10. I think we need to have just a work session on these rules so that we could do that and not at 11:10 decide on everything or pick this one or pick that one. We all have different views. I could elaborate on others and make other comments about it, but it's late. We've been here since 6 o'clock. And it's late, and I think we need to just put this off until we can have a work session and talk about all of these rules at one time and pass them at that time.
It's 11:10.
Call for the vote. Oh, yeah.
Actually, I agree, but I don't agree, but I don't agree. I think that the work sessions didn't work. We never got them done. But I do think that that we can give feedback. I mean, if everyone's cool with the ones that you're proposing, then that's fine. But if people are not, then give him the feedback so he can tweak it and give it back to us for the next meeting. But I don't think we should do a work session. I like piecemealing it like this, and the packet is worth it.
I mean, I'll just say, I've never heard any objection to the ones she proposed. I mean, are there objections to the ones she proposed? Okay.
Which one?
I'm sorry, Councilor Pelham called for the vote, meaning she wanted to cease discussion, and we just kept.
She did, I didn't hear her.
She did.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So you've made a motion to end debate?
Yes.
All right, so you need a 2/3 vote to end debate. So you're going to need 5 people to end debate.
Keep in mind, whatever we vote on tonight, we can change it at a work session.
Well, I did say, if you approve it, you can ultimately change it before you adopt it, but I don't think that should be the spirit of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Zepgolis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
To end discussion, yes.
Councilor Denton?
No.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
Okay, are you saying end discussion?
This is to end discussion.
This is it, to end discussion?
To end discussion,
Yes.
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 Oh, wait, you're changing your note
I'm
again?
changing it, yes.
Okay.
That's what you meant.
Mayor Shornack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilor Holloway?
I know. Yes.
Okay, we are now actually voting on the motion for rules 101, 102, 103, 104, 106, 204 with the changes, leaving out 104, 105, and 209. Councilor Zepgolis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
No.
Councilor Pelham?
Yes.
Mayor Shornack?
No.
Councilwoman Bailey?
No.
Councilor Holloway?
Reiterate the motion, please.
Is to approve rules 101, 102, 103.
No, you've already done 101.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
102, 103, 104, 106, 204 with the changes Councilor Pelham made, leaving out 105 and 209.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I asked you which one.
Councilor Denton just made a motion to adjourn. I have to say they can't hear
Well,
you.
then ask for a motion to reconsider, 'cause I don't know which ones you were talking about.
she can bring it back.
Hello, there's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Which are the numbers you were talking about?
All opposed? Good night.